British Delta in effect. Please enter your agent number now, followed by the hash key.
We have to create culture. Don't watch TV. Don't read magazines. Don't even listen to NPR.
Time comes when silence is betrayal.
More for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. Think for yourself. Question authority.
This code has been compromised.
Welcome back, Truth Seeker. It is Wednesday, June 24, 2020. This is the Gematria Effect on Truth Frequency Radio, also streaming on YouTube. We're on every Wednesday night, 6 to 9 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. to midnight. If you're on the East Coast, if you're in another part of the world, you got to check your time zone. If you are new here, we are a caller-driven program. I usually talk a little bit at the beginning of the show, and then I take your calls the rest of the night. We'll be doing the same thing tonight, and we were supposed to have a guest last week, Eric 777. He does intend to join us tonight. Signals got a little crossed last week. But where I'd like to begin is with what we've been talking about for months. Since this coronavirus thing arrived in the United States just after Event 201, the coronavirus outbreak simulation put on by the World Economic Forum, the Johns Hopkins University, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and a number of other big tech and big pharmacy players. Event 201 being about research that is numbers and conspiracy oriented, we had to get to what the bottom of 201 was. And for months we've been educating about this number, and one of the most crucial facts that supports exactly what we've been saying has been overlooked all this time. I just found out late last night. Thank you, Kathy, who tipped me off. But 201. Again, before I tell you the new thing, let's just talk about some of the stuff we've been discussing. In the history of the Jesuit order, having Gematria of 201, their history nearly came to a conclusion on July 21st, 1773, when Pope Clement XIV banned the order. But the story goes that Catherine the Great of Russia, who had just acquired 201 Jesuits, defied the orders, protected the Jesuits, and let them continue on with their mission. 201. And in Gematria terms, the Jesuit order equals 201. Ignatius of Loyola equals 201. Again, he's the founder of the Jesuits. Right now, we're living in the time of the first Jesuit Pope, Pope Francis, born Jorge Mario Bergoglio. His name equals 201. And the room number that he stays in the Vatican is numbered Suite 201. And you probably didn't remember what number he stayed in before, but you've likely heard the story how he's a man of modest means and chose to live in a humble room. If you go read that story, it's been known since March 26, 2013, that he's been staying in Suite 201. And of course, there's a lot more to the 201 list. But with regards to the Catholic News Service putting out that information on March 26, 2013, 13 days after he became Pope in the year 2013, that date, March 26th, can be written 26/3 like 263, the 56th prime. And remember, Society of Jesus equals 56, as does coronavirus. And the first confirmed case of coronavirus before they moved the date back was December 12th, 56 days after the Event 201 simulation. A simulation, when written out as words, sums to 56. So 201. this very profound number to the Jesuits in Gematria, in their history, and even connecting to the room that the first Jesuit pope lives in, Pope Francis, a room no pope has lived in before. Again, just to put the Gematria on the screen for people on YouTube, there's even more to that list. There's a lot more I could say about 201. It's all going to be recorded in the book that I am so close to finishing. Patience. And again, just another reminder. The Jesuit logo, the sun with the IHS on the inside, the IHS in Latin stands for Isus Hominum Salvator. Essentially means Jesus Christ is Savior. But that Latin phrase in Gematria sums to 266. Again, it's a Jesuit motto. Pope Francis is the first Jesuit pope, and he's the 266th pope. The motto, the small way equals 122, like Pope Francis equals 122. Think about how perfect it all is. And you can only understand and appreciate this by learning this very simple code of adding letters and numbers together, Gematria. So for some more 201s, this whole George Floyd thing that's brought about Black Lives Matter and I Can't Breathe, people wearing masks in hot weather, breathing in their own carbon with signs that say, I can't breathe, the ultimate mockery. You have to remember that in the Event 201 simulation and the Clade X simulation that came before it, which came 666 days before the pandemic was declared, and I suggest everyone look up Clade X of May 15, 2018, and take at least the time to watch the 26-minute highlight reel. In those simulations, there are projections of exactly what is taking place in the world today, including citizen pushback, protesting, rioting. And what's really sparked this in the U.S. is the video of the killing of George Floyd, who was born George Perry Floyd. And again, the name George Perry Floyd equals 201. Days before his killing, which involved a counterfeit $20 bill, Steve Mnuchin, the Skull and Bones member, Skull and Bones, an offshoot of the Bavarian Illuminati, established by Adam Weishaupt, the Jesuit, who died on the 322nd day of the year, November 18th, 1830, like how Skull and Bones identifies by 322. But Steve Mnuchin, he came out and said that the Mint was no longer going to debut the design for the $20 bill with Harriet Tubman on it, just days before the killing of George Floyd with the counterfeit 20. And Harriet Tubman sums to 201. She's connected to the history of slavery, which connects to the Civil War, which connects to the Confederate flag, which was just banned by NASCAR, a Southern sport, over the George Floyd killing. And the word Confederate equals 201. And plenty of historians have argued that it was the Catholic Church and the Jesuits who financed the South so as to break apart the United States of America so that they could bankrupt the nation and then take control of it, as they did in the Act of 1871 that made Washington, D.C. an independent territory open to international control and investment, which is exactly what happened. 1871, Catholic 71. The pandemic began on the 71st day of 2020, March 11th. But anyhow, Confederate 201, George Perry Floyd 201, Harriet Tubman 201. And the time of the George Floyd killing, we got the story of Lamar Ferguson, who said he was beat up by the Asian cop in the George Floyd video. He said the Asian cop beat him up in 2014, breaking his teeth. Lamar Ferguson equals 201. 2014 was the year of Michael Brown killing in Ferguson, Missouri, that brought Black Lives Matter to power. Lamar Ferguson equals 201, Michael Brown equals 201. And the young man killed at the George Floyd protest that got a lot of attention in Omaha was James Scurlock, another name summing to 201. And don't forget that in Paris, France, the home of the Jesuits, they're protesting two names together, George Floyd and Adama Traore. Adama Traore was killed July 19th, 2016, and he was killed on the 201st day of that year, and exactly a span of 201 weeks from the killing of George Floyd. And the Jesuit orders 201, who's from Paris, France, where Adama Traore was killed, and these protests are now going on. So, consider that in Gematria, Paris, France, sums to 56, the same as Society of Jesus, the same as Black Lives Matter, the same as Washington, D.C., where the Jesuits have been longer than the federal government. Consider Anthony Fauci equals 56. Again, he is a Jesuit who at the Jesuit University Georgetown on January 10th, 2017, said that the United States of America would face a pandemic, a surprise outbreak in the time of Trump. Again, all these things 56. Paris, France, Society of Jesus, coronavirus, Anthony Fauci, Washington, D.C., mind control, toilet paper, Black Lives Matter, all the same. Yes, if you are watching on YouTube, for some reason I forgot to put Society of Jesus up there, but yes, in the same cipher, it equals 56. With regards to Society of Jesus, Washington, D.C., Black Lives Matter, Paris, France, all equaling 56. Remember, Washington, D.C. was laid out by the French Freemason L'Enfant from Paris, France, where many of the founders studied. And don't forget that earlier in this month, on June 5th, a date written 5/6 like 56, Black Lives Matter, was painted in the streets of Washington, D.C. For more 201, the face of Google, one of the companies involved in the contact tracing, keeping surveillance over us using the new bolstered 5G internet technology and the computers of this day and age, which fit in our pocket. Google and Apple have partnered with the government to keep track of us under the guise of protecting us from the spread of the virus. But the recent face of Google, Sundar Pichai, his name equals 201. 201. TV show on Netflix about a virus being unleashed on a town as a conspiracy. It's called Between. You can watch it on Netflix. They go to the medical building often throughout the show. The medical building is number 201. The term between equals 74, like how Event 201 was October 18th, the day leaving 74 days left in the year. Between, Masonic, Occult, Gematria, English, they're all 74. And in light of the Society of Jesus, Jesus, Messiah, Cross, Gospel, Parables, they're all 74. Out of the 50 states in the U.S., only one state sums to 74, the 33rd state, Oregon, like Jesus on the cross at 33. And this TV show Between, again, about a conspiracy where they keep showing you 201 at the medical building. Think about this nation, New Jersey, the 201 area code, where the majority of pharmaceutical companies are headquartered. Think about the TV show Containment, set in Atlanta, where the CDC is. In Containment, the show ended July 19th, 2016, the same day Adama Traore was killed, which was the 201st day of that leap year. That also means July 19th will be the 201st day of this year. Something to keep in mind. And don't forget the Rashard Brooks killing in Atlanta. The Wendy's burned June 13th, the day leaving 201 days left in the year. The killing of Rashard Brooks was the day prior, June 12th, 612, like how George Floyd was killed in the 612 area code Minneapolis, and in Gematria, police has Gematria of 612. Riddles, numbers, Gematria, area codes. When you look at your phone, so often there's numbers and letters on the button. Again, that cute little coronavirus drawing with the red furry triangles all over it. The illustrators of that are Alyssa Eckert, summing to 201, and Dan Higgins, summing to 56. 201, 56. Numbers of the Jesuits. Tom Hanks, born in 1956, along with his wife Rita Wilson, who together they both starred in Sleepless in Seattle, where the coronavirus first arrived outside of mainland China. Tom Hanks, when he was getting better, tweeted that he was losing to his wife with a picture of a Corona typewriter. He was losing to her in Gin Rummy by 201 points. He also stars in Inferno, the movie that came out on Bill Gates' 61st birthday. That's 2 hours and 1 minute long, 201. That's about a billionaire who wants to depopulate the world with a virus. Inferno. You know? That movie came out October 28th, 2016. Bill Gates, born October 28th, 1955. And don't forget, Bill Gates' first birthday, October 28th, 1956. That was the day Elvis got his polio vaccination on live TV on Jonas Salk's 42nd birthday. In Gematria, vaccine equals 42. It was exactly 42 weeks after Elvis's birthday, who'd go on to die at age 42. And again, Bill Gates, now Mr. Vaccine, operating out of Washington State, the 42nd state, while building Jesuit high schools. And his full name, William Henry Gates, also sums to 201. So how fitting he gets the 2 hour and 1 minute inferno about the billionaire who wants to depopulate the world, like he said he wanted to do in 2010 at his TED Talk, where he said we need to reduce the Earth's population by 15%, and we can do it if we do a good job with vaccines. Another big joke was the Joker, Novak Djokovic, yesterday. 33 years old on his 33rd day of being 33 after hosting a tournament named Adria that equals 33. He comes down with the corona, another word that equals 33. And this was an interesting ritual on the day it happened, June 23rd, because it was the day leaving 191 days left in the year. And remember, Society of Jesus equals 191 with the alphabetic order. We just talked about how the former leader of the Jesuits, Adolfo Nicolas, died on the 191st day of the current Jesuit leader's age. That's Arturo Sosa. And the former Jesuit leader died at age 84. Jesuit equals 84, as does the title Superior General, which he held. Big number with the Jesuits. Ignatius of Loyola died 84 days from his birthday. The founder of the Jesuits, Pope Francis, in his 84th year of his life, having 84 birth numerology. Again, big old number with the Jesuits. The man who replaced Ignatius of Loyola, Diego Lainez, he died on January 19th, a date that can be written 19/1 like 191. Again, big old number. Yesterday, on the day leaving 191 days left in there, you had the super ritual with Djokovic, the Joker, the 33 ritual, like Jesus on the cross at 33. That was also the day in history that Batman came out with Michael Keaton in 1989, and the day before, the director of Batman had died on the day it was announced that Michael Keaton was going to be playing Batman in the movie The Flash. But also, yesterday on this same day, June 23rd, the leader of Black Lives Matter, Shaun King, said it's time to tear down white Jesus. And, you know, maybe this is a topic and a conversation worth having, but at this time when there's already all this fuel on the fire and there's already so much anger and frustration in the world, to offer this at this time, it's just, you know, it is what it is. It's wrong. And it's not to say that it's not right, because again, I've said many times before, I wrote about in my first book, the description of Jesus in the Bible is not the image of white Jesus that we get, who Rambo will so often tell us is the picture of European royalty. Wrote all about this in the book. But again, the timing is just all wrong. There's already just so much division and negative energy in the world. This topic, not appropriate for right now, but as you can see, done so perfectly by the ritual on a day that's relevant to the Society of Jesus. And what else is interesting about Black Lives Matter equaling 56 in Pythagorean, like Society of Jesus, is that Black Panther Party sums to 191 with the alphabetic order, just like Society of Jesus. And there's a Black Panther who's been front and center in the news lately, and that's Bobby L. Rush, whose name equals 56, who introduced H.R. 6666, the Trace Act, to track us. Contact tracing. But again, the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, they are the tip of the spear. One of their mottos is divide and conquer, which happens to equal 84 like Jesuit. And with everything going on right now, it's just never been more clear. Black Lives Matter came to power on the back of Michael Brown, which equals 201 like George Perry Floyd. The events are 6 years apart. At the beginning of the George Floyd killing video, the cameraman is sure to back up some distance so that he can capture the 6 on the side of the garbage can. Now we're having deja vu, but it's worse, of 6 years before with the killing of Eric Garner and Michael Brown. I can't breathe. So again, Rituals on top of rituals. And what else is worth mentioning is that on this same day, the day leaving 191 days left in the year, one of the most Catholic populations in the world was shook with a massive earthquake, first reported as a 7.7 and then a 7.4, and that was southern Mexico, where there's many Catholics. And remember, 7.4. Last year we had the earthquake on July 4th in Southern California, and we talked about then. The epicenter was on a military base, and the U.S. military for decades has tested blowing up big bombs, atomic and nuclear, per the history books, underground and way up in the atmosphere for experimentation purposes. Again, they never told us what they were experimenting with, but Jesse Ventura told us a little bit, saying that, you know, when he was a Navy SEAL, they used to plant bombs all around the coastline of Mexico. Anyhow, in Gematria, energy, weapon, and nuclear, they all sum to 74 with the alphabetic order, just like Jesus, Messiah, gospel, parables, cross, all 74. Special number. It's all about energy and vibration. And, of course, it takes energy to create an earthquake. And, you know, putting this negative energy through the world was the cabal on Society of Jesus Day, from the earthquake in this very Catholic territory to what Sean King did, who is likely controlled opposition by the church if he realizes it or not. And as we talk about, they always pair 74 with 33. The epicenter of the Mexico earthquake was in El Coyol, which equals 33, just like Mexico equals 33. And the date numerology was 33, going with the Joker ritual. Djokovic, his 33rd day of his age, 33. A man who's had a lot of tennis matches scripted for him in recent times, as we've called well in advance, along with the rest of the world of rig sports. So, that's what I wanted to say for now. Let's go out to a caller. And let's see, we got about 4 minutes before the break. Looks like Marco's first in line. Marco, let me tweak the sound here real quick before you start speaking so everyone hears you nice and clearly. And, all right, friend, you got the floor.
Hey, what's going on, Zach?
Hey, what's up, man?
Quick one. Ain't too much, man. Can't complain. Honestly, I got a lot. I'm going to spit this thing real fast. I ain't going to take a lot of time. I did send you a text. I don't know if you got it. It was kind of a joke to me. Said, punch up 3 digits on Google and then put new cases behind it. Did you get that text?
Yeah, a lot of people have been asking me to make a video about that. I think it's interesting, but to me it really doesn't prove a lot, just because there's so much reporting every single day about coronavirus, and they're coming from every corner of the world. So it almost seems like every number should be covered. So
yeah, to me, it just shows that they're lying. You know what I mean? No matter what number you put, it's like, oh, we got something for that, or we got something for that too. Or
sure.
It's almost like it's computer generated by Google or something. You know?
And that makes total sense too. It probably is that way. I mean, we know they're lying. We know how they're contriving the stats every single day. So
definitely. I know you talked about like JFK before and stuff like that, but have you actually talked about the 33rd parallel itself?
Well, I when I first started, I used to talk about the 33rd parallel all the time. For the record, JFK wasn't killed on the 33rd parallel. Almost every historian will write it that way, but Dealey Plaza is not on the 33rd parallel. It's close, but it's not technically there.
I was going to say that a lot of these things are either directly on the parallel or it's very close. Robert Kennedy, the same thing in Los Angeles. That actually was on the 33rd parallel, if I'm not mistaken. But I was just going to run out a couple of names. Phoenix, Arizona, that's on the 33rd. Roswell, like we talked about with the UFO.
Yeah.
Atlanta, I was definitely going to say that. Casablanca, which was interesting to me, in Morocco. And then you know who was in that? Humphrey Bogart, and Humphrey Bogart equals 201. Also, the 33rd president, Harry S. Truman, he bombed in Japan. He bombed 2 cities over there, and you know that was one of the first areas that was bombed with nukes. That was Hiroshima, basically. The junction of the Tigris and the Euphrates, right there. That's the 33rd parallel. And then they talk about where Jesus supposedly predicted his death, and Caesarea Philippi. I think that's how you say it. was supposedly the 33rd parallel as well. But you also have China, Iran, Iraq, Libya, Syria. All those areas are supposedly either on or near the 33rd parallel. I just want to throw those two things at you right fast. You said the break is about to come up.
Yeah, the bridge is about to come up. Yep.
Okay, I really just wanted to drop the thing I really called about is D.O. Hughley's punk stuff and how he's lying saying that he has the coronavirus now. If I could drop that real fast. Basically, he said that he had it on Juneteenth. Supposedly, he was on stage in Nashville, Tennessee. The numerology for that date was 45 and 65. He was said to have collapsed on stage, and collapsing, how it's written in all of the news reports, collapsing equals 45, just like the day's numerology. Collapsing also equals 54, and he was sitting on a stool on stage, and stool equals 54. Like I say, it also equals 65. He's known to do comedy, and comedy equals 65. Pandemic equals 65. He's also known to be a king, one of the kings of comedy. Kings of comedy equals 65 in the most pure cipher. His birthday is March 6, 1963.
We're going to commercial. Sit tight. We'll be right back, everybody.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. By Christine, great for heart palpitations. By Ann, before I started using this product, every afternoon my ankles and my hands would be swollen. That doesn't happen anymore. So if that part of their advertising is true, I have to assume that the rest of it is also. Not to mention that when I had my yearly blood test, only a few weeks after beginning to use this product, my cholesterol had dropped over 30 points. I'm going to continue to take it. By Croc, I love this product. It really works. By Brad, works great, thank you. Tell us your story. Get your Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite. Hey folks, guess what the #1 phrase that Life Change Tea receives by email? You ready? We love this tea! We love this tea! Time after time, week after week, we love this tea! Life Change Tea gives you more energy, a beautiful cleansing, and fulfills its slogan perfectly. The tea that makes you go. So if you want to be on your health game, log on to getthetea.com and order Life Change Super Strength Tea. Packages come in a 1-month supply, and when you brew this stuff, wait until you see the results. Aren't we all about the results? And with a lot of people's health struggling, we can use a little bit of help. Doctors will tell you disease starts in the gut. So log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Be our next email saying, I love this tea. I love this tea. Get the tea at getthetea.com. Helping America one tea bag at a time.
For 5,000 years, the world was ruled with wooden ships by one man. 242 years ago, a small group of free men crafted a new nation built on liberty and freedom. Global elites have been fighting to destroy this new nation called America ever since. Based on actual events, Charm of Favor tells a true story of how they corrupted the election system. They infiltrated federal agencies and murdered witnesses, judges, and even presidents to keep from being caught. Now, the largest and wealthiest crime syndicate the world has ever known has been drawn out of the shadows. They have killed hundreds of Americans and recently attempted to assassinate half our congressmen. Still, they escape arrest through an almost supernatural charm of favor. Read Charm of Favor and be prepared to open your eyes to what may lie just around the corner. Charm of Favor is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
You're listening to the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
All right, we're back, Truth Seeker. We're going to go to Rambo just in a moment, but we got to let Marco finish. He got interrupted by the commercial break. And then when Rambo's done, we'll continue on with calls. And after the next break, we'll be joined by our guest, Eric 777. So, Marco, you're back on.
Zach.
Hey.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate you, man. Like I said, I'm going to wrap it up, man. I ain't going to take too long. Where's that? Yeah, I said collapsing equals 45 equals 54. 45 is the date numerology. 54 was a stool that he was sitting on. He had a bottle of water that he was drinking. Bottle of water equals 46. And this seemed to be kind of like his sacrifice, so to speak. Like I say, this was in Nashville. Another name for Nashville that the locals call it Cashville, Tennessee. Well, Cashville, Tennessee equals 64, and it also equals 46. Equals 64 like 46 like sacrifice or whatever, and he was drinking the bottle of water. It also equals 89 like virus, Cashville, Tennessee. And again, he's said to have had the coronavirus. That's why he collapsed on stage. His birthday, again, is March 6, 1963. And 105 days later would be Juneteenth, would be last Friday. And Nashville equals 51, the reverse of the 105. Nashville also equals 102. So we know that for the event 201. We know that for, George Perry Floyd. D.L. Hughley, written out as the word, also equals 102. So, all of this, there's no coincidence why he had this whole thing going on. Daryl itself, his first name, the D, that equals 33. Nashville also equals 39, and Daryl equals 39. Daryl Lynn Hughley, his whole name, that equals 94, and Juneteenth equals 49. What else I have here? And I also wrote down, I thought it was funny that he's 57 years old. His height is 5'7", and the entertainment industry is controlled by 57. The Scott is right.
And it's either the word entertainer, it's entertainer or entertainment. It's one of those words equals 57. Just like Prince died at 57, and then Charlie Murphy died at 57, like the next year in April. So that's another entertainer, number 57. Yeah, it's really good. And about the 102 thing, again, that was a number that we started out with coronavirus that's also factored in the whole George Floyd and Civil War thing. So it's just interesting how they bring those two narratives together through that number 102. Because, again, coronavirus compared to the Spanish flu that came out of World War, which equals, in 1918, 102 years ago. And, yeah, man, it's amazing how they tie it all together. I appreciate it, Marco.
Definitely.
All right, man.
Yeah, definitely. I won't hold you, man. I just, if I can say one last thing, it's just funny to me that he catches COVID-19 on the 19th of the last, the last
right.
team on the month. You get what I'm saying?
Right,
so
just like last month on the 26th of May, Donald Trump went to war with the 26 letters that created the internet. Yeah, it's the same type of thing, man. Appreciate it.
Exactly. But I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you.
All right, thanks, Marco. Have a good night, man.
Thanks, man.
Okay, let's see. All right, Rambo's turn. How you doing, Rambo?
Thanks again, Zach.
Welcome in.
Last week you were asking me about Oddfellows. I couldn't really find, most of what you find is from the Oddfellows themselves.
Sure.
So maybe I'll still try to find something. I'll probably have to, you probably need for that you need to find a book or a website and then search within a website. But the only interesting connection was that they started in Baltimore, Maryland, which is the same birthplace of Johns Hopkins. So there's that connection as far as, what's going on today. So, yeah. I just put I put up 2 posts on GematriaEffectNews. They should be the top 2. Or you can click Rambo's Corner, but they should be the top 2 since I just put them up. I want to talk about the umbrella imagery that we've been seeing. But there's also some predictive programming. You had mentioned how AutoZone, it sounds like autonomous zone. And the AutoZone in Minneapolis was famously smashed and burned and looted. And that was precipitated by this figure dressed in all black with a black umbrella, gas mask, which a lot of people feel was suspect was an agent of some sort. But in my post, it should be the top one there. It's really short. It's titled Minneapolis to Seattle Predictive Programming. In the freeze frame with the guy with the umbrella, you can see on the wall clearly. It's spray painted. This is in Minneapolis. It says autonomous zone. Spray painted on the wall of the AutoZone.
You're right.
So,
that is amazing. That is amazing. And it reminds the supposed leader of the autonomous zone. He has a record company called Black Umbrella.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's the theme of my.
I was wondering if you knew that because you didn't bring it up. Because it's a good point right at the beginning. The leader of the autonomous zone in Seattle. If you look it up, his record label is called Black Umbrella. Yep, and there's umbrella symbolism all over the autonomous zone. I did a video showing all of the imagery and video from the scene because my man King Henry went down there to document it for me. There were umbrellas painted everywhere.
Yeah, but so it's not a coincidence. There was spray painted on the AutoZone, and most people would assume that the term autonomous zone independently was created by activists in Seattle, but it wasn't. Like, it was spray painted right on the AutoZone in Minneapolis a week ahead of time. So yeah, so I showed that image and I highlighted it. It's pretty clear. It's undeniable. So another thing is the logo in the Seattle autonomous zone. It's specifically it's umbrellas in general, but particularly pink umbrellas. So it's, I guess the official, I don't know if it's one official or one of the official logo posters. It's a black background with a pink umbrella, and even people held up the signs as the police, like, you are scared of pink umbrellas. And it's interesting because at the AutoZone, the young man who followed the agent with the umbrella, he had a pink shirt on, and I'm wondering if that was part of the programming as well.
Sure.
He had the same colors, pink and black, as the autonomous zone posters. But so I'll talk about the umbrellas. I did a post on GematriaEffectNews. It's the title "From JFK to George Floyd Protests: The Imagery of the Umbrella." So a lot of the details of news events and elements of scripts and rituals, as is generally accepted by the audience and by broader truth movement at large, if there is such a thing. But a lot of the details in news events are actually elements of rituals. We know that. But whether it's in analyzing events through gematria or other avenues, when we see, and you mentioned that all the time, when you see specific details recur again and again, they repeat certain elements again and again, in wide-ranging, seemingly unrelated events, that's a surefire indication that these particular details have a deeper meaning to them because they keep showing up in multiple events. And sometimes these elements will link seemingly unrelated events. The only challenge is determining what the origin and meaning of the actual detail is. So on this occasion, we're talking about umbrellas. And so other moments in history that have consumed large amounts right now, human energy, vibrational energy, and attention, umbrellas have shown up. So most recently, as we know, it's the George Floyd killing, which has sparked demonstrations on an unprecedented scale. And despite the fact that the killing occurred in Minneapolis, the epicenter of the protests has become Seattle, Washington. The symbol adopted by the Seattle movement is the umbrella. During demonstrations, those on the front lines carry umbrellas. This is said to have been inspired by a particular protest movement that used the umbrella as a symbol, the Hong Kong pro-democracy protests, which was dubbed the Umbrella Movement. One of the individuals who's become a central character in the George Floyd upheaval is Umbrella Man, so-called, the agent provocateur, dressed in all black, wearing a full-face black gas mask, and carrying an open black umbrella, nonchalantly smashing the front windows of a Minneapolis AutoZone with no fear of repercussion. This conjures up images of the original Umbrella Man. If you web search Umbrella Man and search Umbrella Man on Wikipedia, you will get references to a figure in the John F. Kennedy assassination. At the time JFK was shot, there at the foot of the grassy knoll, actually on the sidewalk, right at the spot where JFK was shot, there stood a man dressed in black holding up an open black umbrella. And again, this was at a major historic unprecedented event. And I've shown, I got some images of that. And again, it was not raining, which is important, so these umbrellas only stood out. It's when no one else had umbrellas, they were the only people with umbrellas. It wasn't raining and nobody else in the area carried umbrellas. When the Hong Kong protests first broke out in 2014, the most iconic image was of a young man dressed in all black, holding up two open black umbrellas in the midst of a cloud of tear gas. He was dubbed the Umbrella Man as well. That was back in 2014. And his powerful, mystical image graced the cover of Time magazine. I showed that Time magazine cover in my post. So today again, we're at a time of intense human vibrational energy on an epic scale. And we're also experiencing the coronavirus phenomenon. And it just so happens that in Shanghai, in the country where the virus is purported to have originated, there is a biotech facility called Ruilan Bao Hu San Biotech Limited that has as its logo the top of an open umbrella, which forms the shape of a Malta cross. The Malta cross is a symbol of the Knights of Malta, the military wing of the Jesuit order. The exact same open umbrella top, Malta cross design, is seen in the Resident Evil series of survival horror video game, which features a company called Umbrella Corporation in a city named Raccoon City. Raccoon, spelled correctly, is an anagram of Corona. Raccoon City experiences a devastating pandemic in the video game. So there's a lot of parallels. And of course, there's that the presence of that umbrella logo, which looks like, a Malta cross. And this came out in 1996. So, talk about predictive programming. And the Hong Kong umbrella movement is also a movement against the Chinese government. So China's involved in that too. At the heart of all this umbrella imagery is mind control. To control the human race, you don't have to just physically control it. To control humanity, you have to control humanity's minds. So what we're seeing a lot of in the media and images in the news, what a lot of these is, it's stagecraft and ritual, literally actors, but it's all designed to control humanity's minds, because that's the ultimate way to control humans. And so images and symbols have vibrations that humans respond to and trigger reactions based on knowledge of those symbols and images. So human beings have a knowledge at an unconscious and epigenetic level of what those images and symbols mean, and they'll react to them. We've already seen the inexplicable toilet paper hoarding and how in Gematria toilet paper matches mind control across all 4 base ciphers. A groundbreaking work on MK Ultra style trauma-based mind control, and an absolute must-read and must-have for any seeker of truth is the 1996 work of Fritz Springmeier and Cisco Wheeler, the Illuminati formula used to create an undetectable, total mind-controlled slave. If you look at that book, you can just decode the mind control in everything, from in the news, in popular culture, symbols. It's an amazing book. You don't even have to read the whole thing. Just one little paragraph is dense with information. So in that book, they have on chapter 7.2, they address the use of umbrellas, the umbrella image in MK Ultra. That's in chapter 7.2, where they say this is associated with military programming. An umbrella protects something, such as the Delta assassination altars. An umbrella must be taken down from the inside, and so must this protective shield of the umbrella program. So the umbrella is also an image of, if you're being controlled, if you're part of a group like the elite group, sometimes when you're holding the umbrella means you're under that the control of that group. A lot of times the person holding the umbrella is actually like this agent who's breaking the windows. He's more than like an MK Ultra monarch, and he's part of the system. He's an agent, so he's under that. But it's also a trigger. They could also have triggered, the umbrella could have triggered shooting or destruction and looting behavior in people who might have been pre-programmed. So as Fritz Springmeier states, umbrella program is mostly used on military and law enforcement. So oftentimes that the sight of the umbrella will trigger a program reaction in law enforcement, but there are also people who are non-law enforcement who may have received umbrella programming. But that's a really absolute must-read book. And another very common MK Ultra symbol, since we're on the topic of MK Ultra mind control, which is even more common than umbrellas, is shattered glass. In MK Ultra trauma-based mind control, the subject, called a monarch, somebody who's been subjected to the trauma-based mind control called a monarch, who's actually a slave, literally a slave, their mind is fragmented into multiple parts. Each part is a separate, independent personality. Shattered glass is a very common symbol of a multiple personality, polyfragmented mind. And that image is even more prevalent than umbrellas. So toilet paper is not the only mind control image that we're seeing. Shattered glass is the traumatized, shattered mind of a mind control subject. Things like pandemic panic and economic hardship and police brutality, those are also part of the traumatization. Now, another MK Ultra symbol, I won't discuss this here, but it's also the mask. The mask is another very popular MK Ultra symbol. In many cases, you'll see two of these MK Ultra symbols used simultaneously in the same ritual: the umbrella and shattered glass. So, such as the umbrella man in Minneapolis smashing the AutoZone windows. There's two, there's actually three. He also has a mask. So he has actually three of the elements of MK Ultra imagery. He has the umbrella, shattered glass. So he has a shattered mind too. I've very little doubt he's MK Ultra. And he has the umbrella. Then there's Hong Kong rioters, and I've shown a pretty good picture of this. Some of them are breaking glass doors and windows while simultaneously holding up black umbrellas, which is clearly ritualistic, since holding up an umbrella in one hand and ramming an object into a glass door with the other is blatantly impractical and awkward. But it's done for the imagery and the ritual. Both the umbrella and the broken glass are elements of mind control and ritual. So this mind control ritual was played out also in 2007 when Britney Spears, who, I mean, she's an MK Ultra monarch. She admits it in her music. So more than likely, I mean, there's no 100% proof, but she's more than likely MK Ultra monarch. She attacked her car, no, paparazzi car, sorry, including the front passenger side window with an umbrella. So there you had that broken glass and the umbrella. You saw that there too. That was clearly MK Ultra ritual. And the Gematria reveals the relationship between these two themes of MK Ultra mind control. The terms umbrella and fragment overlap in two base ciphers. Simple, which are ordinal Gematria, and its reverse. So the events that are taking place now are what many thought would have taken place in 2012. Everybody's talking about 2012, and the kind of things that happen now is what they thought would have happened then. But 2020 is actually 2012 in the Ethiopian calendar. 2012 in the Ethiopian calendar will end on September 10th, Gregorian. So until September 10th, Gregorian, because Ethiopian calendar starts on September 11th, we're in 2012
that's
right
the
now.
Christian Coptic calendar.
Yeah, it's the same with the Ethiopian calendar as well.
Okay, yeah, I think they're the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so in the Ethiopian calendar, this is 2012. So and everybody was expecting this kind of thing in 2012. So in the very heavily esoteric 2012 London Olympic opening ceremonies, there were 30 women dressed as Mary Poppins in all black with black umbrellas descending from the heavens to rescue 100 children in hospital beds. It's a pretty horrific looking opening ceremony. A lot of people are perplexed. Like, what kind of
Rambo? I gotta interrupt because I just connected something from this. So if you look into the Rockefeller Foundation, who's been in the vaccine business since the 1920s, in 1984 is when they declared their mission to vaccinate all children of the world. The Rockefeller Foundation in 1984, and I know the ceremonies with Mary Poppins and children and umbrella equals 84, like Jesuit. So I'm thinking that's what this is all about right here. This is the Rockefellers right here, and more. But that their mission to vaccinate all children began in 1984.
Okay, yeah, 84 is big in this. The number 84 in Gematria. So yeah, that was part of the imagery as well. Yeah, the 100 children in beds with these. Again, there's that umbrella. There's 30 women dressed in black with black umbrellas. They just descended on the arena. And these terrified, children in hospital beds. What kind of ceremony is that? But the umbrella does have major symbolic and ritual significance to the Vatican and the Catholic Church. They have what's called a umbrulacum, which is Wikipedia defines it as, quote, also known as the pavilion. In modern usage, the umbraculum is a symbol of the Catholic Church and of the authority of the Pope over it. And whenever the Pope visits a basilica, its umbraculum is opened. So it does have some significance also there as well.
And the Catholic Church equals 84, like the Jesuit order equals 84, in addition to Jesuit equaling 84. So it just makes too much sense with umbrella 84.
Also, there's a super match. Actually, it's at the top of my article. It's a super match in 3 out of 4 base ciphers with umbrella and fake news. They match in 3 out of 4 base ciphers, and they're both 84. So fake news is 84 as well, just like umbrella. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. But there is some. There's a decode on Rihanna's hit Umbrella. Rihanna did that hit Umbrella. And they have that theme of being part of that club when you're initiated in that group. It's, it's a satanic group. So the lyrics of that song are pretty interesting. It has nothing to do with like some friendly, the friendly tones that exoterically it purports. If you look at the lyrics, it's about being initiated and possessed. So yeah, I'm already going to get into Rihanna, but you check out the lyrics of Rihanna's song, Umbrella. So also, yeah, so it's, seeing how it's important to the Vatican Catholic Church, I guess it's also no surprise that the umbrella showed up at the JFK assassination. And according to Fritz Springmeier, MK Ultra mind control umbrella is used on assassins.
Well,
so that kind of...
And it reminds that JFK was killed 177 days after his birthday, and the Jesuit order also sums to 177, like New World Order. Catherine the Great, who saved the Jesuits, her husband was killed on July 17th, 1707, so... Yeah, it all comes together.
Oh, yeah, that's... So, yeah, hopefully, I'd be interested to see if Eric 777 speaks about JFK's relationship with the Vatican, because a lot of people assume that because he was the first and only Catholic president that he must have had a good relationship with the Vatican, but he did not at all. They were at odds, so yeah, I'd be interested if he touched on that.
I think he's listening now, so...
Yeah, that's it for today.
All right, appreciate it, Rambo. Great work as always. Awesome, thank you.
All right.
All right, have a good night, man. Time for We'll be right back, everybody.
Truth Frequency Radio is your #1 source for news and information without the hate, hype, and fear. We're proud to feature cutting-edge programs like Beyond the Veil with Chris and Cherie Geo, X Squared with Brooks Agnew, Paranormal Portal with Brent Thomas, Sharonism Raw with Karen and Missa, Fearless with Frank Castle, Strange World with Mark Sargent, The Eye of Ra with Rob Castaldo, The Infinite Fringe with Billy Ray, Ironworks with Josh Corey, The Kev Baker Show, and dozens more. Did you know you can listen from any telephone by dialing 641-793-7117 or call into your favorite show toll free at 833-TFR Live. Uncensored talk and news you won't hear in the mainstream media. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
What's next for police reform? I'm Lisa Silacera, Fox News. Last week, the president signed an executive order on police reform. Today, the Senate plan, backed by Republicans, was voted on.
President Trump in the Rose Garden reacting to the defeat of a Republican-authored police reform bill in the Senate and criticizing Democrats for pushing their own bill, which would remove the shield police officers currently have from lawsuits.
They want to take away a lot of the strength from our police and from law enforcement generally, and we can't live with that.
Democrats in the House and Senate have introduced their own legislation which would create a national registry for complaints and disciplinary records of officers. At the White House, John Decker, Fox News.
The House bill is expected to be voted on tomorrow, and the president saying in response to the tearing down and defacing of statues around the country, he will sign an executive order on protecting monuments by the end of the week. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers has activated the National Guard to protect state properties after a night of violence outside the state capitol, where 2 statues came down, one of which commemorated an abolitionist Civil War hero. A state senator was also attacked, and a Molotov cocktail was tossed into a government building. The governors of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut banding together, calling for people who travel there from states with rising COVID-19 cases to self-quarantine.
We have to make sure we're doing everything and we're diligent and our citizens are diligent. We also have to make sure the virus doesn't come in on a plane again. Learn that lesson, been there, done that.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, several states in the South and West have seen a marked increase in the number of cases of the virus. A new Justice Department indictment says WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange sought to recruit hackers at conferences in Europe and Asia to provide his website with classified information. America is listening to Fox News.
into the truth frequency.
Your protection from deception. This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Condition orange. Condition orange. Situation Delta in effect. Please enter your agent number now, followed by the hash key.
You have to create culture. Don't watch TV. Don't read magazines. Don't even listen to NPR.
Time comes when silence is betrayal. More for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. Think for yourself. Question authority.
This code has been compromised.
All right, we're back, Truth Seeker. We got 2 hours left. Eric 777's joined us. Again, he's an expert researcher on the Jesuits. Gave us a really great show a few weeks back. And he's going to have more good information today, and I got some questions for him this time. So, Eric, can you hear me? Are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
All right, yeah, you sound good. You're loud and clear as well. Well, welcome back. And before I give you the questions I got, I thought you'd just let you introduce yourself again and jump into what's most pressing that you'd like to share at this moment about your research.
Oh, thank you, Zach, and thanks again for having me on. I had lots of fun a couple weeks ago, and I've taken that 2 hour block that I was on with you, and I put that video clip up onto my YouTube channel.
Very cool.
That's Eric 777, and I'm going through some copyright entanglements right now, and I'm in the process of submitting the counter notifications. But I've also created a second YouTube channel, and that's Eric 777 number 2. But no, I had lots of fun. Just I think we put out a lot of great information in that last stream. Definitely, you enlightened me to all of the Gematria connections with the Jesuit order. Definitely that's a very key aspect to the big picture. And I just want to thanks again for putting out all the work that you're doing. I realized I didn't catch this at the time on the show, but when you're connecting all the 187s to John F. Kennedy, that's the police code for murder.
Yes, indeed.
And that's why it clicked me. That's why Snoop Dogg's even has a chorus on one of the songs where he's like 187 on a
undercover
and,
cop.
I don't want to
right,
say that
yeah.
word just with all the racial tensions right now.
Yeah, you just never know, right? Yeah, but that is the chorus. You're right.
And just with the Bilderberg and the 54 equals the Jesuit order and all the 201 research. That I think that was a great show. And thanks again for inviting me onto the platform.
Of course, very welcome.
And one other thing, which we brought up with Zuckerberg on the show, just I believe, if I remember correctly, his name is the same as Jesuit.
Yes, it is.
Zuckerberg, and I didn't bring up, but he actually had an audience with Pope Francis.
Was that on September 18th or not September? Was that on the 18th of this month?
I'm not sure about this month. His meeting, he had a meeting in 2016. It was August 29th, 2016. Zuckerberg and his wife went to see the Pope, and you can see, I know, Rome Reports has a video of it up on YouTube. The Guardian News has it. Even CNN Business has it, covered it briefly on YouTube. It looks like it was August 29th, 2016.
I got to look into that. I'm sure there's a lot there. Very interesting.
Yeah, because I believe was it 84 that his name sums to?
Yeah, his name
Jesuit.
His name sums to 84, like the Jesuit order and Jesuit, and he's born in 1984, that Orwellian year. So yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that one. Very interesting.
And interesting with Facebook, I just want to get this is exact name right, so I'm pronouncing it right. But they're the chief financial officer there at Facebook. His name's David Wenner, Wehner. He's their current chief financial officer at Facebook, but he went to Jesuit Georgetown University.
Ah, doesn't that make? I see it right there. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, good one.
So if you look into Facebook, like Microsoft and like Google and Amazon, it's a CIA, NSA, DIA intelligence agency front ultimately.
Right. Yeah.
With the Vatican lurking in the shadows. Actually, right before Zuckerberg met with the Pope, I believe Eric Schmidt, the CEO of Google at the time, and I believe now Schmidt's on like the board at the Pentagon. And the Pentagon, I don't think we mentioned this on the first stream, but the Pentagon, the architect who designed the Pentagon was a Knight of Malta named John McShane, based out of Philadelphia. He's known as the man who built Washington. He remodeled the White House in 1951. Built the Roosevelt Library, the Jefferson Memorial, Philadelphia International Airport, and many others. But his name is John McShane. He was like a Knight of Malta, also a Knight of St. Gregory the Great, I believe, and a Knight of the Holy Sepulchre. And he was educated by the Jesuits at St. Joseph's Prep School, and then went to Catholic LaSalle. This is the same architect actually that designed the massive shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C., which I believe that's the biggest Roman Catholic church in North America. And it's very interesting that the same architect who designed the Pentagon, which is of course the headquarters for the U.S. military. And just staying on the topic of the Pentagon, interestingly, there's a building in Italy called the Palazzo Farnese. I believe it's in Caparola, Italy. It's an old, kind of Jesuit war room. The name of Farnese, so you think Spanish military war room. But it also has that identity, like the same shape as the Pentagon.
Huh.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
But definitely there's a big tech in the Pope. I believe the CEO of Instagram even went to see the Pope, and actually the Tim Cook of Apple went to see the Pope right in around the same time. It was like in that same 3-week block span, you had the CEOs of the biggest tech companies in the world all meeting with the Pope.
What were the dates of those?
I mean, I'll get the dates for Tim Cook. But yeah, Zuckerberg, what looks like August 29th, 2016. Tim Cook, Tim Cook met with the Pope, it looks like January 22nd, 2016. So all in the year 2016.
I understand that date right away because Pope Francis is 122 and so is the Jesuit motto. So there's something going on there with that. Okay, yeah, I'm going to have to do... So 2016, okay, I'm going to go back and look into all these. These are good observations.
And it looks like Instagram CEO Kevin Systrom met with the Pope February 26th, 2016.
Okay, yeah, when the Pope meets with somebody, there's no mistake about it. There's a ritual there. Just like when he came to Washington, D.C., the day he spoke while Obama was president, on September 23rd, on 9/23, that was the 266th day of the year, like he's the 266th Pope. He began speaking on the White House lawn on September 23rd at 9:23 a.m. local. And... again, the rituals are just so tight. So, yeah, these are all things worth looking into. Interesting.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic information. And just if people haven't seen that, it's incredibly creepy. It shows the power that the Pope yields. But he got a massive standing ovation before addressing the live joint session of Congress.
Yeah.
It was like for 5 minutes long they were giving the Pope a standing ovation.
Sure. Yeah.
Very creepy. And I mentioned, and actually there's, I mentioned briefly on the show last time, if people go into the Architect of the Capitol website, aoc.gov, on the marble relief portraits, they would see that there's actually two popes in the U.S. House of Representatives building. Kind of, they're up on the walls where the cameras don't speak. Like Moses is up there too, and actually the Pope in his speech actually referenced Moses.
Huh.
He's like, oh, there he is up on the wall.
Huh.
But these popes are in that same batch of statues. Like King Hammurabi of Babylon is interestingly on in the collection. I think that's like a Freemasonry connection there.
Sure.
Freemasonry and Babylonianism is essentially the same in terms of what they believe. It's very interesting. There's the Roman Emperor Justinian is in there as well. So, but I recommend people check that out. That's on the official government website. That's called the marble relief portraits. And when Pope Francis was speaking, he was obviously, of course, speaking between the two Roman fasces, which I mentioned on the last stream, which are in the House. And there's also like the ceremonial mace of the U.S. House of Representatives. Let me see if I have the exact source here from the. I don't know if you. I don't think I have my screen share on.
It's okay, because
right
the way the broadcast is
did you
set
see
up,
my screen?
people aren't going to see your screen, so it's okay.
Okay, I was saying I can't turn on my screen share, but this website. This comes from the official history.house.gov. I don't know if people have seen the symbolic mace of the House of Representatives. It's essentially it's a Roman aquila, essentially like kind of showing that the U.S. is kind of the resurrected Roman Empire. And John Lennon actually, in one of his lyrics, I know John Lennon said that like America today is the new Roman Empire, and New York is Rome itself. But right from the website, it says here, the bundled rods of the mace resemble fasces. Fasces used in the ancient Roman Republic symbolize strength through unity. The bundled rods are much stronger together than they are separately. And this was put into the U.S. House back in 1841. It was designed by New York silversmith William Adams, was his name. But the Roman symbolism on this official mace of the House of Representatives is like over the top.
Okay, yeah, you got lots of interesting artifacts. What are you doing in your research when you're even coming across these things?
Well, for me, I think I came to the realization that like America is essentially was modeled off of, because America, you see it referenced a lot in various works in history that I've read. Like Manly P. Hall refers to America as like the Great Experiment.
Right.
And I kind of like, what is it? And like, so I started. When you look into the symbology, you can see like I think what the experiment is to be like the sword arm of the Roman Catholic Church. And, like America itself was kind of modeled off of like the Roman Senate, and they admit this. Like I found incredibly all on like their official government website. Like they admit like the U.S. Senate is modeled off of the Roman Senate.
Right. Yeah. Indeed.
The Treasury Building is an old Roman Athenaeum, which was the name of the old Treasury buildings in Rome.
Sure.
And like I mentioned, like the fasces like are literally everywhere in the United States. Like it's literally the seal of the United States tax board.
Right. And again, remind us how that object was used in the time of Rome.
Yeah, essentially, like the fasces was gripped or yielded by, they're called lictors, who were like essentially police, military police of ancient Rome. And the lictors yielded the fasces, and that's what they used to enforce like the decrees of the Roman dictator.
Like a baton?
Yeah, essentially kind of like a baton. These are weapons that like this predates obviously like automated machine guns and bombs and modern technology.
Sure.
But but in terms of the fasces itself, though, like it was symbolic. Like it was actually like it was the official symbol of the Roman Republic itself. But the fasces instrument, they were used by the Roman lictors or military police.
Sure.
And actually, speaking of the U.S. military police, if people go on there, I'll search it up here. People type in military police logo, U.S. military police logo. They'll see that the Roman fasces is the logo for the U.S. military police. It's kind of right in plain sight. And it says assist, protect, and defend underneath. And there's two golden like revolvers over top of it.
Right, yeah. I see.
And to me, I think that's just profound control, that they have all the symbolism out in plain sight, and like no one bats an eye to it. We read on the last stream, the NSA's official government website, they say that the silver key on the official logo of the NSA is the key of St. Peter, which is the Pope. And they say that's their key to security.
Huh. Interesting.
And there you go. And so ultimately, I think Edward Snowden, is a gatekeeper. Because he didn't bring any of this up, and he validates the official narrative on 9/11.
Right.
So I guess you'd think that it was actually Osama bin Laden and a bunch of jihadis in a cave that could go up against $600 billion defense system, the biggest military the world has ever seen, the biggest security apparatus.
And for the Catholic symbolism in the invasion of Afghanistan after 9/11, we invaded Afghanistan 26 days later, and crusade equals 26. And that was on October 7th, 107. Military equals 107. It was the day leaving 85 days left in the year. The word Templar is 85. So you got your crusade, your Knights Templar, your military order. And
George Bush famously referred to it as a crusade. Actually, this a researcher just documented this on my Jesuit World Order blog. But George Bush, the exact date was September 16th, 2001. So this is 5 days after the staged false flag 9/11 attacks. Bush referred to, he said, this crusade, this war on terror, is going to take a while.
Right. Yeah.
He literally refers to it as a crusade. And just this guy documented some of the personnel of the U.S. government at the time. You had Donald Rumsfeld was the Secretary of Defense from 2001 to 2006. He attended Jesuit Georgetown University, and he's a close friend and associate of Knight of Malta, Frank Carlucci, who was the founder of the Carlyle Group, who was the Secretary of Defense under Ronald Reagan. Then Robert Gates succeeded Rumsfeld as Secretary of Defense. Robert Gates, PhD and honorary degree from Jesuit Georgetown University. Robert Gates was also the CIA director. And then Leon Panetta, who was also later become the CIA director. Leon Panetta was the Defense Secretary from 2011 to 2013. He got his bachelor's and doctorate from Jesuit Santa Clara University. If you look at the Deputy National Security Advisor position for Iraq and Afghanistan, Megan O'Sullivan was there from 2004 to 2007. So this was this is when the crusade was taking place in Afghanistan and Iraq. Megan O'Sullivan went to Jesuit Georgetown University. She's currently the North American chairman of the Trilateral Commission, or chairwoman, and she's on the board of directors at the Council of Foreign Relations. And then Douglas Lute was from 2007 to 2010, Douglas Lute was Deputy National Security Advisor for Iraq and Afghanistan. He's a Roman Catholic. His wife, Janet Lute, was the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security from 2009 to 2013 and has a doctorate from Jesuit Georgetown University. If you look at the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, from 2005 to 2007, it was Peter Pace, who's a devout Roman Catholic. He's a Jesuit Georgetown Leadership Seminar alumnus, and Peter Pace was awarded the quote President's Medal by Jesuit Georgetown University and the John Carroll Medal by the John Carroll Society, which is an interesting society to look into because we brought up a lot of the connections to John Carroll in the stream we did a couple weeks ago. And then the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Michael Mullen, from 2007 to 2011, was a Roman Catholic. And then Martin Dempsey, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, from 2011 to 2015, was a Roman Catholic. And then if you look at commander of the United States Central Command, John Abizad, who is Roman Catholic, he was chairman or commander of the U.S. Central Command from 2003 to 2007. Then you had William J. Fallon from 2007 to 2008, Roman Catholic, graduated from Catholic University of America. David Petraeus, I'm sure people have heard of Petraeus. He was in the news how his wife, he gave his wife top classified information. Petraeus was commander of the U.S. Central Command from 2008 to 2010. Petraeus went to Jesuit Georgetown University, actually went to the Edmund Walsh School of Foreign Service at Jesuit Georgetown. Then John Allen in 2010 was commander of the U.S. Central Command. He went to Jesuit Georgetown. And then Jim Mattis from 2010 to 2013 is a devout Roman Catholic. He was chairman of the U.S. Central Command. And actually, that'll be a good place to end off, just because the point in how controlled the U.S. military is by the Jesuits at this point. In an article from 2018 from the Defense Department, this is what Patrick Shanahan said. Patrick Shanahan was recently the deputy department head, or the deputy secretary of defense, back in 2018. Briefly, he was literally like the CEO of Boeing, and then became the deputy of the head of the Defense Department, like a joke. But this guy's a Roman Catholic. But this is what Patrick Shanahan said of James Mattis. Quote, "He applies Jesuit level rigor to the work that we take into his office," end quote. That came from an official government article from defense.gov titled "Shanahan National Defense Strategy Reflects DOD's Will to Win." I could keep going on and on with these names, but like the point being that like if you look at who's in control of the U.S. military, you see that this was a crusade that was going on, and that's why when you look at like the torture and the interrogations going on in Guantanamo Bay, like there's no essential difference between that and what occurred in the Roman Catholic Inquisitions in Spain and Portugal, for instance.
Sure, and that goes on over in Cuba, where for a long time the Jesuit dictator was Fidel Castro, who died 433 days after visiting Pope Francis, which is the 84th prime, bringing us back to Jesuit, and then 433 days after Fidel Castro's death, his son reportedly committed suicide, and again, 433 is the 84th prime. So yeah, it's interesting how that's over there in Cuba, which looks to be another Jesuit stronghold. And of course, it was used all throughout the Cuban Missile Crisis to keep the people of the U.S. in fear. We got about 5 minutes before the next commercial break, and I wanted to ask you about this because I don't hear you talk about this much in your research, but I kind of have a theory on what was going on when the Jesuits were formed, and I'd just like to hear what you think about this. And that is that Martin Luther, who was leading the Protestant Reformation against the Catholic Church, he authored 2 books in his time speaking out against 2 different groups. And one was obviously the Catholic Church, and the other was Talmud-following Jews. He wrote a book about that called On the Jews and Their Lies, going after the Jewish supremacy within the Talmud, because in the Talmud it's expressed that only Jews are humans and everybody else is a goyim slave that's meant to be a slave when the Jewish Messiah returns. And he had some other critiques of Judaism, but he went after these 2 groups, Martin Luther, who died shortly after the Jesuits were formed. He died in 1546, and 46 relates to the Gematria of Catholic, like how there's 46 books in the Catholic Old Testament, like how JFK died at age 46. Also relates to the Gematria Sacrifice and Execution. They say Martin Luther died from ill health, but again, if you get poisoned, looks like he died from ill health. Anyhow, Martin Luther went after these 2 groups, and then the Jesuits were formed by Catholic interests as well as Jewish interests, and Ignatius of Loyola died 84 days from his own birthday. He was replaced by Diego Lainez, who was a founder of the Jesuits who was Jewish, who eventually went on to die on January 19th, 19/1, like 191, like Society of Jesus 191. But anyway, what do you think about the possibility that those interested in protecting the Catholic Church, as well as those interested in protecting the secrets of the Talmud, united to form this Jesuit order?
Well, I think there's I know with Lainez, like he was when he was a Marrano Jew, and he converted to but like just in terms of like when he joined the Jesuit order, he like in terms of you could say wasn't officially Jewish. Like he went through a conversion rites to become a Catholic, and now these rules aren't in the books, but for over 300 years, the Jesuits did not allow openly Jewish members to join. But that changed post Vatican II, with the Jesuit priest Augustin Bay kind of leading the alliance between the Roman Catholic Church and the modern Zionist movement. And that's why the Anti-Defamation League gives out the Augustin Bay Interfaith Award annually, for instance. But going back, like I know Pope Pius II referred to like the Order of Moses as like the true order. In terms of like, and like you brought up the Talmud, and in terms of like how the Talmud and the Talmudic beliefs of the priesthood and the Roman Catholic Church's beliefs on the priesthood, they're essentially the same. Like the priest class is superior, to the inferior Pelagians or Goyim, if you will.
Sure.
So I think I think in terms of ideological grounds, I think there are some similarities between the two sects. But I think Martin, what was that year that he wrote that book? I think that was 2 or 3 years before he died.
He wrote it in 1543, 3 years before his death. Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting because I personally want to do more because I want to do more research into like why he wrote that book as well. I haven't done too much. I haven't read the book, to be honest. I'm aware of some of the accusations made in it, but it doesn't really change my opinion of like the Jews being the Jews being like the biggest threat.
Eric, pause right there real quick because we're going to commercial. We'll be right back, everybody. Sit tight.
Hey everyone, it's Chris Gio, founder of Truth Frequency Radio and host of Beyond the Veil. The mainstream media and establishment are running scared right now, and they've prominently featured TruthFrequencyRadio.com as number 89 on the federal government's hit list, also known as the fake news list, which is essentially a list of sites slated for censorship on Facebook, YouTube, Google, and other social media. Now is the time for you to get involved. Share your favorite TFR shows far and wide on forums and social media. Tell your friends and family about your favorite shows. If you're a business owner, get in touch with us to feature your product or service right here on TFR. And if you haven't done so already, become a TFR supporter now and get unlimited commercial-free downloads in high quality. Visit truthfrequencyradio.com/sign-up. Thank you for making TFR the leader in independent and uncensored talk radio. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
Poor water quality is a major health issue, and it's only getting worse. Municipalities can't keep up, standards have dropped, and pollutants are increasing. Where does it all end? It ends by keeping the pollutants outside of your home with HydroCare's advanced systems available at Wave Home Solutions. No less than the best purification materials and processes have been developed by HydroCare to provide you with healthy, clean water for drinking, cooking, and showering. HydroCare far surpasses the competition in removing chlorine, odors, iron, lead, chemicals, limescale, and much more. Don't settle for less when it comes to your water. We'll take care of the toughest water problems for you, whether it's from a city or well source. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, call 888-997-WAVE. That's 888-997-WAVE. Or go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death. This is Uncle Walt from the Ironworks. Josh, Corey, and I have chosen to look at life with no fear. No fear of the unknown. No fear of questions about the supposedly well-known. No fear of ridicule for thinking outside the familiar fool's lines. No fear of the boot on the neck of those refusing the party line. No fear of taking on those so convinced of their beliefs they would sooner drink the Kool-Aid than believe they've been fools made. In this world filled with cattle think, can truth's protective layers be peeled back to show the tender, juicy pink? Are we all just grist for the mill? Souls sold against our will, or is that just how it feels? When you're filled to the rim with triviality so fear-filled and grim, think clear of the fear. Right here, Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 a.m. on TFR. Josh and I and you will hammer out the impurities of technology-driven groupthink, fold in a dash of logic, and quench it all with a bit of absurdity. The Ironworks, break free of the fear.
No hate, no hype, no fear. We are TFR, your protection from deception.
All right, we're back, Truth Seeker. We're at the midway point of the show. We got our special guest with us, Eric 777, excellent researcher of the Jesuits. Gave us a great half hour's worth of information. He's going to stay with us. Eric, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, perfect.
Thanks again for having me on, Zach.
Of course, welcome.
Having lots of fun.
Okay, so I got a few other questions for you, and then whatever else you want to talk about, we'll get right back to. But also, I just look at the history of Israel and its official establishment date, May 14th, 1948, which is also Mark Zuckerberg's birthday, May 14th, 84, who used to go around with the Star of David on the inside of his hoodie and sweat bullets when he was asked to take it off. But May 14th, that date can be written 14/5, like 145. David Ben-Gurion, whose name equals 145, declared Israel a nation on May 14th, 1948. And when you run the alphabetic order in reverse, Catholic equals 145, like the date 14/5. And in recent history, there was a ritual with John Harbaugh, who's now the coach at the Michigan Wolverines. He went and visited the Pope the day before his tight end was drafted into the NFL by the Denver Broncos, whose name equals the same thing as Catholic. But Jake Butt fell all the way to the 145th pick. He was supposed to go in the first round, but instead he went deep in the draft. Catholic equals 145, went to the Denver Broncos, who have the Gematria like Catholic. And again, this was right after his coach at Michigan visited the Pope, and then his draft stock fell way down. And then what was weird is for 2 weeks, Wikipedia kept his name Jake Butt, who plays tight end, think Catholic boys, perverted rituals, Jake Butt, tight end. But for 2 weeks, Wikipedia kept his name as Jake Dick Butt, kind of like Dick Buttkiss of the NFL. Again, American football credited to Walter Camp, who went to Yale and was likely a Skull and Bones member, again, offshoot of the Bavarian Illuminati established by the Jesuit. But anyway.
Well, actually, football is a great. I love talking about this because you see the Jesuit influence all over the NFL. And
absolutely, absolutely.
Like Vince Lombardi, like the face of the NFL, like the Super Bowl is the Vince Lombardi Trophy. He went to Jesuit Fordham University. I believe got his doctorate there. Lombardi actually was going to become a Catholic priest. And there's a Knights of Columbus Lodge named after him in New Jersey. He was a 4th degree Knight of Columbus and a Knight of Malta on top of it. He's kind of like the face of football. And then you got George Papa Bear Hollis. I believe he's credited as the founder of the NFL. He went to Jesuit Loyola University in Chicago. And it was just a devout Roman Catholic. He just had to go to Catholic Mass on every Saturday and Sunday. And I think there's lots of I gotta look into the Gematria angle, especially with the Patriots. I'm sure have you done work on the Patriots, for instance? Because I made the connection personally that they didn't start winning their Super Bowls until the Patriot Act was signed. And the Patriot Act was written by a Jesuit professor at Georgetown named Viet Din. Last name spelled D-I-N-H. Vietnamese Roman Catholic, went to Jesuit Georgetown. He's known as like the architect of the Patriot Act. And the commissioner of the NFL at the time just coincidentally also went to Jesuit Georgetown and was the chairman of the board of directors there. And that'd be Paul Tagliabue. And, Brady, I don't know the exact date, but he had his meeting with the Pope. And so does the Patriot Act signed, and then it's the perfect, I think, propaganda, because the Patriots have the American flag on their logo, so it's to rile up the crusade in the Middle East that we were just talking about, kind of with all the mindless flag waving and nationalism.
There's so many rituals with 9/11, the Patriots and the Patriot Act. One of the easiest to see is from the date of 9/11 to the date the Patriot Act became official was 45 days later, and Patriot equals 45, so does New England. And the day that Tom Brady got his first action, September 23rd, that was 12 days after September 11th. He wears the number 12, Tom's 12. That's also the 266th day of the year, that big Jesuit number. And there's a million more things to it as well. But yeah, the NFL is so full of the Jesuit symbolism. The year the Falcons were in the Super Bowl 51, the Super Bowl was 51 days from Pope Francis's birthday that year, and he blessed that Super Bowl. Matt Ryan, who's the quarterback of the Falcons, is Jesuit educated. Tom Brady went to Catholic school. And Atlanta.
Matt Ryan, I think it was Boston College.
Yeah.
The guys had as a football watcher, that was the most rigged football game I've ever seen.
I can't believe anyone still thinks the NFL's real after that. And before that game was even played, I said why the Patriots would win, and it was all about 25. The video back then, I used to get views. That video had like 500,000 views. It had like 20,000 negative comments when the Patriots were down. But I told everybody Patriots would win. It'd be all about 25. Sure enough, 25-point comeback on 2/5 when Falcons equals 25. But Pope Francis blessed that Super Bowl, and Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons, his birthday is September 27th, the Jesuit birthday, and also Atlanta's on the 84th Meridian West, also the 33rd parallel. Yeah, I could go on all day about sports, college and pro, and the Jesuits. It's something I've been on in a big way for years. But again, about the establishment of Israel, have you done any research on the Jesuit influence, the Catholic Church's influence on the establishment date of Israel, May 14th, 1948?
Yeah, a bit. I personally, I would like to get more books, just in terms of the history of Israel. I'd like to become more well-read on the subject. But I am aware, President Truman was in office, and he gave the official recognition to the state of Israel. He was interestingly given an honorary degree from Jesuit Fordham University 3 years before, in 1946. And Truman famously actually tried to appoint General Mark Clark as an official American ambassador to the Vatican.
Incredible.
In 1952. But definitely, I think I said on the last show, I view the modern state of Israel as the Pope's Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem.
Sure.
And I referenced some of the official accords that were signed to give the Vatican, now they have full tax exempt status in Israel, and they actually have a right to a lot of the holy sites in Israel as a result of Shimon Peres's presidency.
Sure, that was a big ritual. His funeral in recent years.
But no doubt, the Jesuits were very influential in the creation of the modern state of Israel, and that's why we see the Jesuits' U.S. military. How much money do they give to Israel every single year? I know in the '80s it was even, I think, $4 or $5 billion annually.
It's an incredible amount, and who knows if it's even all being revealed. Okay, something else I started to think about.
But to hammer that point, I think the fact that you see the U.S. military aid shows that it's the Jesuits want the state of Israel. Okay. And interestingly, Napoleon wanted to create a state of Israel back in the 1800s. We can go into him later in the stream if you want to. He was very, very controlled by the Jesuits. He actually had a Jesuit priest as his political advisor, the Abbe Joseph Saez. He wrote the famous Third Estate book that kind of kicked off the French Revolution.
Okay.
And Napoleon, just coincidentally, he was born on the island of Corsica, where all the Jesuits just happened to be after they were banned from Spain and France and Portugal in 1773. And of course, he was coronated by the Pope, kind of made like the Holy Roman Emperor of France.
Interesting. So something I'd never really considered.
Just with Israel, though, people can look that up. He was kind of so to me, with Napoleon, kind of back in the 1800s, planning up the modern state of Israel. To me, it's been like a centuries-long agenda. And there's this interesting character I just wanted to bring up before the break. His name is Manuel Lacunza, S.J. This guy's actually kind of credited as being like the founder of the Rapture. And like in terms of like futurism ideology, like the Antichrist is like some future entity that we can never identify. That kind of goes to him. But interestingly, this Jesuit priest wrote a lot. He disguised himself as a Jew and wrote under a pseudonym. He wrote many Jewish books, but his Jewish pseudonym was Jan Josephat Ben Ezra. His main work was titled "The Coming of the Messiah in Majesty and Glory." But in terms of like the spiritual Zionist movement, a lot of the spiritual Zionism actually comes from this Jesuit priest, Manuel Lacunza, and a Jesuit priest who disguised himself as a Jew. Very interesting.
That is interesting. Okay, so in researching 201, something I'd never considered before in light of the Jesuits, because I've always known that there's a huge presence of the Scottish Rite in this ritual, which kind of shares Washington, D.C. with the Jesuits. But the moon landing, I know a lot about the ritual of the moon landing, but I never thought about before how it was on the 201st day of 1969 in light of this being this so important Jesuit number. You ever done anything with the Jesuits and NASA or the moon landing?
Oh, wow, that's an interesting connection with the 201st day. I have done a bit, actually. And one of the, I believe the leader of the Apollo mission, Glenn Looney, let me get the official Jesuit. I'm going to make sure I'm getting the right Jesuit school. Yeah, so Glenn Looney was the flight director during the Gemini and the Apollo programs. Was on duty during quote historic events such as the Apollo 11 lunar ascent and the pivotal hours of the Apollo 13 crisis. This guy, Glenn Looney, went to Jesuit Scranton Prep School, and then transferred to the Jesuit University of Detroit at Mercy, and then graduated from the Jesuit University of Scranton.
Did we cover
this guy? This interestingly, only after a month after Looney graduated from looks like University of Scranton, President Eisenhower signed into the existence of NASA, the National Aeronautics Space Administration. So this guy's a very interesting figure, and just in terms of on the moon landing, the voice of NASA, Jack King, he's the guy that famously announced that like mission accomplished. Like the voice of Apollo, Jack King went to Jesuit Boston College.
Perfect. Your point about Looney going to Scranton Prep, that's the town where The Office is set, and that TV show ran exactly 201 episodes. And the guy with the shaggy hair from that show, he just did one of these poses with a Corona typewriter like Tom Hanks did, where in the case of Tom Hanks, he put in his post with the Corona typewriter that he was losing to his wife by 201 points in gin rummy. So in light of what you just connected there with Glenn Looney and Scranton, I'm really understanding the Office thing now with the 201 episodes, since the Apollo program led to the moon landing on the 201st day of the year.
Oh wow! Oh, that's I think that shows that The Office is some good old Jesuit theater, as I say.
Yeah, I guess
that's how I view like all of Hollywood essentially. I mentioned on like the stream a couple weeks ago, like a Jesuit priest actually wrote the official Hollywood production code, the quote unquote production code, in 1930. His name was Daniel Aloysius Lord, and I got a physical copy of his autobiography, where he admits to being the secret author of the code. And he said that it was splendid that bigotry didn't get a chance to scorn it because it was a product of the Jesuit.
Amazing.
And I found the digital version of that book, and that's on my archive.org page. Eric Bowman 77. People type that into the search bar at archive.org. I think his autobiography is titled Played by Ear, the autobiography of Daniel A. Lord. But so knowing that, like, essentially all modern day Hollywood is Jesuit theater. The Catholic Church actually used to have an official body called the Legion of Decency, which had the power to like censor like any movie in Hollywood. And like every single producer had to kind of like sheepishly bow down to the Legion of Decency.
Very interesting.
There's another interesting figure people should look into in terms of early Hollywood history. His name was Joseph Ignatius Breen. Ignatius being the founder of the Jesuit order.
Right.
Joseph Ignatius Breen was a devout Roman Catholic, educated at Jesuit St. Joe's Prep and St. Joe's University in Philly. Was later knighted, I think a knight of St. Gregory the Great by Pope Pius XI. But Joe Breen was the head of the Production Code Administration, which was like the official body that was set up to censor Hollywood. So like the Production Code Administration was enforcing the Production Code of 1930, which was drafted by the Jesuit priest Daniel Lord.
Amazing. Eric, how was it that you came to understand the Jesuits were the tip of the spear in terms of the New World Order cabal, or however you want to put it?
Well, in terms of internet researchers, Johnny Cerrucci was one of the first researchers that put me on to the Jesuits. From guys doing streaming work here on YouTube, and I got a couple of his books after finding him on YouTube. And another guy that woke me up to the reality of I call it the Jesuit or Vatican New World Order was an author named Avro Manhattan. Probably 4 years ago now, like I found just a copy of his book, The Vatican and World Politics. I think it was recommended on a YouTube video I was watching at the time. And I started reading Avro Manhattan's The Vatican and World Politics, and I was just, completely blown away and fascinated.
Sure.
At all the power that the Vatican had. And from there, I started collecting books. I went through Avro Manhattan's entire catalog. And actually, I put a lot of those books on archive.org. But I just started, once I got my hands on some good information, from there I just, branched out. Just, reading a lot of the bibliographies and the books I've collected.
Sure.
And, now with the internet, it's so convenient. Like,
Indeed. Yeah.
You can almost learn anything you want at the click of a mouse.
It makes a lot possible, that is for sure. Okay, yeah, for years
also even just as a kid, like growing up in Canada, like here in Canada, I don't know if it's the same where you are in Washington State, but here in Ontario at least, in terms of schools that aren't, quote, public schools run by the state, all of like the religious schools here in Ontario are Catholic.
Huh.
Like it's literally 99.5% of the schools are Catholic. And I noticed like in the city where I am in London, Ontario, like I think the 5 newest high schools that have been built are all Catholic.
Huh. They do
Even
have
as
a
a
lot
kid,
of
I'm like, why? Like, I was like, why are they all Catholic? Like, why aren't there like? Because I grew up in the United Church. I'm like, why aren't there United Church schools? Like, why aren't there Anglican schools in Canada?
Right.
Why aren't there Methodist schools?
Right.
And if you stay in Canada too, like we say that we're a country of equality. I was like, why is there such a monopoly on education controlled by the Roman Catholic Church?
Sure. Well,
and it just it's just all the dots start to connect. Like you see, like as a kid, I always wondered, like why is the Pope this old guy in like a white robe? Like why is he so influential and important? Like why are they showing me on the news? Why is the President of the United States like bowing down to this guy?
Right.
Why is the President of Israel bowing down to him? Why is the President of China bowing down to him? Why is the UK Prime Minister bowing down to him? That always kind of confused me, even as a youngster.
Sure. Yeah, it was a good question. That's the whole thing. A lot of people don't question things. You got to ask that question to find your answer. So, yeah, very interesting. Okay. And how long have you been researching the Jesuits for? The
Jesuits in particular, probably 3.5 4 years now.
Okay, yeah, you were recommended to me, and I started looking at your stuff. I was like, wow, this guy has done a lot of research. So awesome, man. For years, I debated on who was the tip of the spear, but with everything that's been going on this year and just everything pointing to the Jesuits and the whole Event 201 simulation, I mean, a lot of light bulbs went off for me, and now I have no doubts that's who's running the show. So.
Well, it becomes they do a great job in concealing themselves, and the Jesuits have done a great job, I think, in rewriting history to a great degree. Sure. But once you kind of log on to them, like, it becomes kind of undeniable that they're the ones that are running the show. And like I said, as E. Howard Hunt said, a notorious CIA agent, the Jesuits formed the greatest intelligence service in the world, and always have. And that's why I just look at the U.S. ambassador corps. Like 75% of the ambassadors go to the Jesuit Edmund Walsh School of Foreign Service at Georgetown.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally, like, it's crazy. Like, over half of the current ambassadors on the U.S. force.
Very disproportionate. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you done any research on Brett Kavanaugh? Because, again, I'll just remind people. The day that he's the latest member of the Supreme Court Justice, for people who don't know, Brett Kavanaugh, Trump's second appointment. And you might recall he was accused of sexual assault of Christine Blasey Ford, which is a huge ritual, and those two gave their testimony on September 27th, 2018, the Jesuit birthday. And the most bizarre thing about it to me was how many times, while he was saying that he didn't sexually assault anyone, he continued to talk about how much he liked to drink beer and how much he liked beer and how he was going to drink some more beer. And I was like, come on, what kind of lawyer who's going to be on the Supreme Court Justice is going to bring up how much they like alcohol and the same time they're being accused of sexual assault, when everybody knows that alcohol often factors into sexual assault? But he kept bringing it up. And now, with this thing that's happening while he's, in his chair there in Washington, D.C., we have this coronavirus, which has been dubbed the beer virus. Again, I know how these people work ritualistically and lay down pieces of the puzzle for their planned agendas. I'm convinced that when they had him talking about beer over and over and over on the Jesuit birthday, and now how all this factors in with the Jesuits, the coronavirus, where they had to shut down the Corona plant in Mexico because of the virus, I know that there's something greater there. Have you done any work on... Well, I'm sure you've done a lot of work on the Supreme Court, but have you done any?
Well, I think you're onto something there, Zach. Is that Kavanaugh is no doubt an insider. He went to Jesuit Georgetown Prep. He even went to see the Pope with George Bush, I think, back in 2004. The guy has a very shady past. I have to do more research into, like, his legal cases, but I know he was involved in the cover-up of the Vince Foster murder.
Okay.
Back in the 90s, and I know, like, he gave very favorable legal proceedings to Trump's casinos, or to the Trump company, to the Trump empire, when he was operating out of Atlantic City.
Sure.
So the guy's very shady, and actually, he famously said, "What happens at Georgetown Prep stays at Georgetown Prep,"
right?
Which is the elite Jesuit prep school. Like I said, the Jesuits, as E. Howard Hunt admitted to, form the greatest intelligence service in the world. So no doubt, I think that. That was, like, being an insider, that was probably, like, symbolism to his other initiated Jesuit insiders.
Sure. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
No doubt, and it's no coincidence here that Tony Fauci, who went to Jesuit Holy Cross and Jesuit Regis High School, he predicted that there's going to be, I think, no doubt there's going to be a surprise outbreak. In the Trump administration. So he'll wave in the beer, called the coronavirus, named the Corona beer.
And
I think there's something to that.
And Fauci's been the head of the NIH since 1984, the infamous year where Jesuits 84. It's it's amazing.
I found it really interestingly. This week I found Deborah Birx, when she was being sworn in. Let me see if I can find the date. But when Deborah Birx was being sworn in 2012 as, like, on the U.S. military's, like, AIDS task force team, she had a Catholic priest do the swearing. and the priest joked at the beginning. She's like, "Oh, I know Deborah wished that the Pope could be here today to do this."
Yeah.
But John Kerry was there as well. John Kerry, Skull and Bonesman, went to Jesuit Boston College.
Yeah.
I think she's a very shadowy figure. And I wasn't able to find a direct, Jesuit connection to her on the surface, but I found this priest swore her in 2014. So, they're all puppets.
Indeed. And just you bringing up the point about Skull and Bones, again, I'll remind people that's an offshoot of the Bavarian Illuminati founded by Adam Weishaupt, who died November 18th, 1830, the 322nd day of the year, 322, the number of Skull and Bones. And Weishaupt changed the name of the Bavarian Illuminati after he founded it to Order of Illuminati, which sums to 201 as well, that big Jesuit number. So, yeah, a lot of powerful players.
Actually, this ties in, I think, to Weishaupt. I think that was like the Sun Tzu Art of War plot that the Jesuits... I take the opinion that the Jesuits actually kind of mastermind their own suppression. And this is like the principle of Sun Tzu's Art of War, when he says, appear weak when you are strong and strong when you are weak.
Right.
And if people aren't aware of Sun Tzu, I think Sun Tzu is a completely made-up character. Like, there's no definitive scholarship that has proved that Sun Tzu was a real Chinese general, like back in 550 BC. But very just coincidentally, a Jesuit priest was the first individual to translate Sun Tzu's Art of War into a modern European language.
Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, there's just so much influence. And it makes sense that it's them that are rewriting history and modifying history in light of 1984, which is exactly about those topics, changing history, changing the meaning of things, rewriting the past. It's just, they have so much confidence. We're about to go to commercial. When we come back, I want to let you just run with it, share more information with us, because I know you got a lot to share. And also wondering who you think are the most notable Jesuits right now, kind of pulling strings in the world. I'd be curious about that as well. So the music should kick in here any second. We'll be right back, everybody. These quick commercial breaks, because we're on the TFR radio program every Wednesday night. We're with Eric 777, and we'll be right back.
Truth Frequency Radio is your #1 source for news and information without the hate, hype, and fear. We're proud to feature cutting-edge programs like The Christopher Everard Show, The Covert Report with Susan Lindauer, Enemy Within Radio with Tom Barnes, Freaky Friday with The Woo Crew, The Gematria Effect with Zachary Hubbard, America's Evil Genius with Travis Cook, Phoenix Rising Radio with Phoenix, Quantum Connections with Lucky, and dozens more. Did you know you can listen from any telephone by dialing 641-793-7117 or call into your favorite show toll free at 833-TFR Live. Uncensored talk and news you won't hear in the mainstream media. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
On the rise again. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. Cases of COVID-19 in California climbing.
California Governor Gavin Newsom says the state had the highest number of cases in a single day with over 7,100. However, the state also saw the highest number of tests administered, 96,000. Nearly 900 more people are hospitalized with the virus in the state compared to 2 weeks ago, and ICU patients have increased as well.
Not at the rate of hospitalizations, but at a clip of about 18%. Just over the last 14 days.
Newsom begged people to wear a face covering, reminding people that just a few months ago, many were panicked over a shortage of masks and personal protective gear. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
Governors of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut teaming up to ask people travel to their states from states with high infection rates to self-quarantine for 14 days.
You can violate the quarantine until you get caught. And then when you get caught, you're in mandatory quarantine and you're fined thousands of dollars.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, this year's Democratic National Convention taking an unorthodox approach.
Democrats will hold a mostly virtual convention in August. The convention will still be August 17th through the 20th in Milwaukee, but will feature live broadcast and online streaming. Organizers say delegates will be asked not to travel to Milwaukee. A process is being developed to allow delegates to vote on all matters, including the nomination for president, remotely. Joe Biden, the presumptive nominee, does plan to accept the nomination in person, but that event could be scaled down without a large in-person audience. In Washington, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
A federal appeals court has ordered the dismissal of the criminal case against President Trump's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn. America is listening to Fox News.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked one, obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
Condition orange. Condition orange. Situation Delta in effect. Please enter your agent number now, followed by the hash key.
We have to create culture. Don't watch TV. Don't read magazines. Don't even listen to NPR.
Time comes when silence is betrayal. More for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them.
Think for yourself. Question authority.
This code has been compromised.
All right, we're back, Truth Seeker. We got an hour left. We got our special guest with us, Eric 777. Find him on YouTube. He's doing great research. And over the break, somebody sent me a text message on my phone. They said in the background of the Office television show, it says, behind Pam hangs the Jesuit U. Scranton scarf. And so I guess there's even some Jesuit symbolism directly in the show, which makes sense.
Oh, wow.
It would run 201
Wow, that's incredible.
episodes. Yeah, they sent me a little picture here. It's small and blurry, so... But anyone can research that. Again, it just makes so much sense. 201 episodes, the Jesuit calling number. So, also today, you guys, I'd be amiss not to tell you. I almost forgot. It is the 303rd birthday today of modern Freemasonry. Established June 24th, 1717 in the city of London, Jesuit stronghold. And of course, this nation was established 59 years later. Freemasonry equals 59. 59 is the 17th prime. Mason equals 17. Modern Freemasonry began 1717, June 24th, 303 years ago today. The title Saint Ignatius of Loyola, if you put the saint in front, is 303. That could be coincidental. But about those Jesuits, Eric, who if you had to name 5 Jesuits in the world who might be controlling more power than others or pulling more strings, do you have a list like that?
Or are you thinking like kind of like lay Jesuit figures, or
sure,
like for instance, like the current general manager of the Bank of International Settlements is a devout Roman Catholic named Augustine Cartens.
Okay, this makes sense.
For instance, so I would classify him as like a Jesuit coadjutor. Another person being Mario Draghi. He let me pull his person. He was recently he was president of the European Central Bank from 2011 to 2019. Before that, served as chairman of the Financial Stability Board, 2009 to 2011, and governor of the Bank of Italy from 2005 to 2011. Draghi previously worked at Goldman Sachs from 2002 to until 2005. So Mario Draghi went to the Jesuit Massimiliano Massimo Institute in Italy, or in Rome. It's a Jesuit school in Rome. This guy comes from like a black nobility family. This is an example of like a lay Jesuit controlling world finance, world commerce. For instance, another example, Christine Lagarde. She's the current, I guess her last name is spelled Lagarde. Christine Lagarde.
International Monetary Fund. She likes her numerology, that one.
Oh, yeah, she's big. Actually, I think she famously was on that video where she was naming a bunch of like sevens.
Right.
I think. Yeah, that was interesting.
She sure was.
She's currently the president of the European Central Bank. Yeah, and then she was at the IMF for 8 years, from July 5th, 2011 to September 12th, 2019. And Christine Lagarde has had 2 audiences with Pope already.
Very interesting.
She's Catholic educated. So when you look into the players on the international scene, Rome is controlling things ultimately. Like the current Chief Justice in the United States, John Roberts, a devout Roman Catholic, Knight of Malta, for instance.
Sure.
An event everyone should look at is something called the Red Mass that takes place at the U.S. Supreme Court.
The Red Mass at the U.S. Supreme Court. I got to look that up. Okay.
Red Mass, yes. Essentially, actually, right on Wikipedia, like a Red Mass is a mass celebrated annually in the Catholic Church for all members of the legal profession. The U.S. Supreme Court has one, incredibly. And the Saint Thomas More is the patron saint of lawyers in the Roman Catholic Church. Very interestingly, in terms of Jesuit, there was a Jesuit priest that was directly who mediated the Robert Mugabe's removal in Zimbabwe in 2017.
Right.
If people aren't aware, this kind of ties in because we're seeing kind of like a militant Black Lives Matter movement developing right now. And Robert Mugabe was a ruthless black supremacist dictator that was completely brought up by the Jesuits. I have that well documented in a post I just wrote up. He actually was brought up on Jesuit land that was donated to them from Cecil Rhodes. Very interesting. And Cecil Rhodes, his Society of the Round Table, he actually modeled off of the Jesuit order. He admitted that in his own autobiography. Instantly. But there's this Jesuit priest name was Father Fidelis Mukonori. Last name Mukonori. And he did the official mediation of the fall of Mugabe. And it's kind of comical because Mugabe's vice president and a member of a crony, Emerson Mnangagwa, became the puppet leader. A sham show. But very interestingly, this Jesuit priest met daily with Mugabe for over 40 years. He goes back to the liberation movement with Mugabe in the 70s. He was an emissary to Mugabe, to the white farmers in 2000. If you know what happened, was basically they killed and butchered all these white farmers and forced them to get out. But yeah, it's very interesting. Jesuit priests, they say that they're not involved in politics, and here you have this Jesuit officially mediating a kind of a coup in Zimbabwe.
Indeed.
His name was Father Fidelis Mukonori.
Look that one up.
And if you look around the world, Donald Trump, is a Jesuit coadjutor, went to Jesuit Fordham University for 2 years, attended the Al Smith dinner as a boy. I actually documented on my post. I had to do a 3-part post. I could probably put this up to 5 parts now because he's appointed so many. I just went through all of the appointments in Trump's cabinet that I went to Jesuit Georgetown University. And just alone from one Jesuit school, Georgetown, Trump has probably nominated over 60 Georgetown alums into his cabinet. For instance, like the current chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell.
Right.
He's another very powerful lay Jesuit kind of right now. He's directing all of the bogus stimulus packages and coronavirus bailout money.
Right.
And I saw you covered. What was that crazy story? Like U.S. billionaires have gotten $565 billion richer.
They did that on
in the
June
last
4th.
month. So this is almost like this is a wealth transfer that of ancient Roman times that we're seeing here.
Indeed, that's exactly
what's taking place. But yeah, so Powell, I would say Jerome Powell, I would name as one of the biggest lay Jesuit coadjutors in the world right now. He went to he got his doctorate from Georgetown, and he even wrote in the Georgetown Law Review.
Sure.
When he went there. Interesting. This guy is interesting here. David L. Norquist, the current Deputy Secretary of Defense. He got his master's in National Security Studies from Jesuit Georgetown University. David Norquist, he's the brother of Grover Norquist, the propagandist, New York Times columnist. This guy was the first chief financial officer for the Department of Homeland Security also. He's an interesting coadjutor. But I recommend people go through those lists on my website. If they type in Trump on the search bar on Jesuit World Order, you can see I have it all documented from the whitehouse.gov website.
Is this at the archive.org page?
This is on my Reddit page.
On your Reddit page.
That's r/Jesuit World Order, Jesuit World Order, one word. I titled these pages documenting U.S. President Donald Trump's appointments who are affiliated with Jesuit Georgetown University. And yeah, that's just one school. Trump has nominated people from all sorts of Jesuit schools. His top White House lawyer, Pat Cipollone, went to Jesuit Fordham, like Trump. And Pat Cipollone is credited as converting Laura Ingraham to Catholicism, interestingly. And with Kavanaugh, actually, it was Knight of Malta Leonard Leo, who is the president of the Federalist Society. Knight of Malta Leonard Leo, devout Roman Catholic. He actually was the one who's credited as telling Trump to put Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court.
Huh.
Leonard Leo, I would put he's another kind of shadowy figure in the scene of American politics.
Sure. I got another question for you. The Rockefeller family and the Rockefeller Foundation. I was just going back over some of my notes, and I realized David Rockefeller, for example, died 84 days from his birthday on the spring equinox, and equinox has Gematria of 84 like Jesuit. And then going back in time, the man who made the family name what it is, John D. Rockefeller, he died on May 23rd, 1937, which was a date with 84 numerology. There's more to both of their deaths, but they both have that 84 number that points the most to the Jesuits. And I just wonder if you knew anything about the Rockefeller family and how they might be connected.
Well, actually, I view the Rockefellers as kind of like modern day Fuggers. The Fuggers were kind of like they out of Switzerland. Like the industrialists at that time who were working hand in hand with the church, because the Rockefellers I found many connections directly to the Jesuits and the Roman Catholic Church with the Rockefellers. To start with the Rockefeller Foundation, one of the longtime presidents of the Rockefeller Foundation was the president of Notre Dame University, Father Theodore Hesburgh. His nickname is Father SR-71 because he would fly around on a SR-71 Blackbird routinely on taxpayer dollars. This guy, Teddy Hesburgh, was an advisor, I think, to 6 or 7 presidents. Obama even gave him a shout out in 2009 when he was speaking at the commencement at Notre Dame. But then Teddy Hesburgh was the president of the Rockefeller Foundation for over 10 years. And this Teddy Hesburgh was also on the board of directors at the Rockefeller Chase Bank at the same time. And he was also involved with the...
Eric? Hello? Eric?
Hello?
Your signal just dropped there for maybe 5 seconds. Not a big deal.
Oh, did you... where did I leave off?
If you just want to rewind about 10 seconds and just talk, it was right there.
Oh yeah, so I was just saying, Father Theodore Hesburgh. Actually, his Wikipedia page, you can see a photo of him with Martin Luther King. He was on the official Civil Rights Commission as a Roman Catholic priest. He was also the United States official representative to the International Atomic Energy Agency. And there's supposed to be a separation of church and state, which is obviously a joke, and that's like a mockery to us. But Father Theodore Hesburgh, an advisor to over 6 presidents, he was a chairman of the Rockefeller Foundation at one point. And with David Rockefeller, of course, was one of the co-founders of the Trilateral Commission.
Right.
And actually, I have a photo on my Jesuit World Order blog of the entire Trilateral Commission going to see Pope John Paul II on April 18th, 1983.
Huh.
And one of the co-founders of the Trilateral Commission alongside David Rockefeller were 2 Jesuit-trained individuals. The first being Zbigniew Brzezinski. Brzezinski also was an advisor to 5 or 6 presidents. He was famously Jimmy Carter's national security advisor. And reportedly, there's a photo of Brzezinski on the internet with him and Osama bin Laden, which would make sense because Brzezinski was involved in the building up of the Mujahideen in the 1970s. But Brzezinski went to Jesuit Loyola High School in Montreal, Canada, interestingly.
He died.
And he had many papal audiences. And his daughter is currently the big anchor on MSNBC, and she went to Georgetown, Mika Brzezinski, and she actually broke the story on 9/11. She was the first anchor to air that.
That's right. He recently
ridiculous,
died. He recently died on on the eve of Henry Kissinger's birthday, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Brzezinski, you have to go back and look at that. Yeah, amazing.
Well, actually, with Kissinger, a lot of people don't know about him, and when I found this, it just made a lot of sense with the Jesuits. I found that Kissinger became a professor at Jesuit Georgetown in 1973.
Huh.
And that was interestingly after he was involved. The Roman Catholic Church was very involved in the coup in Chile in this 1973.
Right.
And they installed a Knight of Malta, Augusto Pinochet, as the strong-arm dictator.
That happened on September 11th, too. That was a September 11th ritual.
Actually, September 11th. And I mentioned the Knight of Malta, John McShane. A Knight of Malta named John McShane was the architect of the Pentagon. And the Pentagon, of course, I think September 11th, 1941, is when the Pentagon opened.
Yeah, very interesting.
And Brzezinski is a very interesting figure. I have a video on my channel where he says it's now easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people.
Right. Yeah.
For instance, this guy's he wrote his famous book, The Grand Chessboard, which I recommend people read. But this guy's he was a very profound thinker who had big influence on U.S. foreign policy. But he was one of the co-founders of the Trilateral Commission alongside David Rockefeller, and the other co-founder was a man named Tadashi Yamamoto, who went to Jesuit Sophia University in Tokyo and Marquette University in Milwaukee. Tadashi Yamamoto is a very interesting figure in Japan. His last name is spelled Yamamoto. Tadashi Yamamoto. Right on Wikipedia, it says he was one of Japan's leading internationalists and a pioneering proponent of efforts to strengthen non-governmental ties between Japan and the United States. And this guy, he founded the Korea-Japan Forum, the U.S.-Japan Parliamentary Exchange Program, the Shimoda Conference, and the Trilateral Commission alongside David Rockefeller. But this is Tadashi Yamamoto. So David Rockefeller, in his memoirs, he actually talks about, he writes about meeting with Jesuit priest Joseph Rettinger, who founded the Bilderberg Group. We mentioned him a couple. Actually, I have David Rockefeller's memoirs on my archive.org page, Eric Bowman 77. He actually admits in the same book that his family is involved in a conspiracy to change the world socially, economically into a world order.
Sure.
He actually admits it in the book. But in that book, he talks about meeting all these. He talks about meeting Opus Dei members in the Vatican. There's this kind of interesting Roman Catholic secret society called the Circle Panay that was formed around the Prime Minister of France, Antoine Pinay. We had all these Catholic figures are involved in it, like Konrad Adenauer, who's the Knight of Malta, Chancellor of West Germany. Schumann of France was in there. Mentioned Carlos Pacenti, a powerful Catholic financier who actually died, it's kind of suspiciously, in Montreal in 1984. I have to look into that a bit more. Rockefeller was talking about meeting with this Carlo Pacenti, who is chairman of Itali Cement, but a huge Catholic financier. This Carlos Pacenti was essentially like a Vatican mafia financier. He's mentioned in many books, but Rockefeller was meeting him. He brings up Opus Dei in his memoirs. So he's a very interesting figure. Like Jean-Paul Violet is a Knight of Malta involved in French intelligence, the SDECE, who was directly involved in the sniffer plane scandal in the 70s, which was when they siphoned like $800 million out of taxpayer money out of France to fund this bogus anti-gravity device, which maybe it worked secretly, and they're not telling us about it, but the official story was that the experiment was a waste, and there was a huge amount of fraud and corruption, and that was all Vatican money, interesting going into that. But that's Jean-Paul Violet, and he's mentioned in Rockefeller's book. Rockefeller actually refers to this Violet guy as maitre, or master.
Huh.
In his own book, which is, and this Violet's very connected to Masonic circles as well. I think it's very telling that David Rockefeller, he took this guy with him when he went to China in 1973 because Chase Bank was the first American bank given the privilege to do business with the communist Chinese after the Jesuit-controlled experiment to put them into power. And I have it documented on this post I have up on my computer here. But that's why the OSS gave like a whole bunch of grenades and guns and weapons to the communist Chinese during their civil war so that Mao Zedong could come into power. But that's a big topic in itself. But the Jesuits are in control of modern day China, and that actually goes into Sun Tzu. And actually, maybe I'd like to bring up on the stream today before I sign off.
Now's a great time.
David Rockefeller in 1973, this guy he took with him to China, his name was Francis X. Stankard, who was the top international banker at Chase Manhattan. But Francis X. Stankard went to Jesuit Holy Cross. He was a Holy Cross trustee, served as a gift chair every reunion for the class of 1953. Francis X. Stankard was a member of the Jesuit Holy Cross Advisory Board. He was a Knight of Malta as well. A member of Opus Dei, and this is the guy who Rockefeller chose to take with him on his trip to China when he was meeting Premier Chow En-lai in the 70s. Because the Chase Manhattan Bank became like an agent of the Bank of China for their American investments, so they were setting up this agreement. I think it's very telling that Rockefeller took this Francis X. Stankard with him, who essentially was like a papal crusader, with how connected he was to the church. And the whole Rockefeller family, really, if you look at Nelson Rockefeller selected Malcolm Wilson to be his lieutenant governor, and it's even cited on Malcolm Wilson's New York Times obituary that he actually got Nelson into politics. But Malcolm Wilson got his doctorate from the Jesuits at Fordham, went to Jesuit Fordham Prep his whole life. So he's literally brought up by the Jesuits for over 20 years.
Huh.
And he got Nelson Rockefeller into politics, and Nelson Rockefeller picked him as his lieutenant governor. I think I sent you this post I did on an email, but when John D. Rockefeller, when they were breaking up his Standard Oil Company in 1913, which really made it bigger, because they only broke up the parent company, they didn't dissolve any of the trust. While they were breaking up his company, he was golfing with a Catholic priest at the time named Father J.P. Lennon, and the Chief Justice who ruled that sham breakup, Edward Douglas White, went to Jesuit Georgetown and Jesuit High in New Orleans.
Perfect.
So, it's definitely, ever since day one, the Rockefellers have been, I kind of view them as just a modern day, papal nobility, essentially.
That's what it seems. Yeah. Very interesting. Well, we got a few minutes before the break. If you want to start on the piece about Sun Tzu, I'm really interested.
Okay, I'll bring this up. This is from Harvard here. If people want to find this exact article. This is from the blogs.harvard.edu, titled Jean Joseph Marie Amiot introduces the art of war to the West, and that's the name of the Jesuit priest who supposedly translated Sun Tzu's Art of War into English. But I think in reality, the Jesuit wrote Art of War. I think Sun Tzu is an allegorical reference to the Jesuit general. But this was in 1772. I was right from the Harvard website here. So let me see here. So it says, so Sun Tzu, 544 to 496 BC, a Chinese military strategist, revered and influential throughout Asia, was virtually unknown in Western culture for centuries until the French Jesuit missionary Jean-Joseph Marie Amiot translated his masterpiece into French in 1772. So I think this is right. This is a year before the Jesuits were suppressed.
Right.
1770. And this is only 4 years before the Jesuits created the Illuminati, and only 4 years before the Jesuits masterminded the American Revolution, and they were behind the French Revolution as well. That's why Robespierre was Jesuit trained. Right. Most of the other figures in the French Revolution were directly connected.
Year 72. 72 alone is interesting. When you run the alphabetic order in reverse, the Jesuit order has the 72 connection. That's also the year that Catherine the Great got her hands on the 201 Jesuits with the partition of Poland. So 72 is another relevant number to the Jesuits, absolutely. 1772, perhaps a big year for them.
Oh, thanks for bringing that up, Zach. And it's something I noticed when they did this with Catherine the Great, but a lot of these figures who have been renamed the Great were figures who were very favorable to the Jesuits.
And the Great,
like another figure, Frederick the Great, also like Catherine, brought a lot of the Jesuits in to Prussia at the time of the suppression, and he was later relabeled the Great.
That phrase, the Great, equals 84 and 42, both just like Jesuit, 8442, Jesuit 8442.
Wow, so the Great and the Jesuit is like identical. Is that normal or reverse?
That's just, so with the alphabetic order, they're both 84. When you flip it around, reverse is 42. We'll be right back, everybody. Sit tight.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. September 2018. Extendivite works in keeping my blood pressure in the normal range. I've been using Extendivite for many years now. May 2018. Great product. I use regularly and I rarely get sick. March 2018. This product has relieved what appeared to be angina pain in my chest and shortness of breath after climbing stairs. I'm quite happy about it. February 2018. My husband, son, and I have been using this product for a few months now, and we have noticed an improvement in our joints and blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Do you want to lose weight but have no idea where to begin? The Fast Start Diet, a 3-day weight loss plan, is the answer. 3 days of nutritionally balanced, calorie-restricted meals delivered right to your door. No shopping, no measuring, and no cooking. Everything is prepared for you and ready to eat at home or on the go. The Fast Start Diet has all the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting without starving. We've helped thousands of people who have struggled to reach their weight loss goals. Isn't it time we helped you? With the Fast Start Diet, you'll lose weight and feel great.
Find us on Amazon or go to faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWER to get $10 off your first box. As a special bonus, we will include our #1 rated Lipo3 appetite suppressant spray free with your order. Whatever your diet plans are, start with us at faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWER.
For 5,000 years, the world was ruled with wooden ships by one man. 242 years ago, a small group of free men crafted a new nation built on liberty and freedom. Global elites have been fighting to destroy this new nation called America ever since. Based on actual events, Charm of Favor tells a true story of how they corrupted the election system. They infiltrated federal agencies and murdered witnesses, judges, and even presidents to keep from being caught. Now, the largest and wealthiest crime syndicate the world has ever known has been drawn out of the shadows. They have killed hundreds of Americans and recently attempted to assassinate half our congressmen. Still, they escape arrest through an almost supernatural charm of favor. Read Charm of Favor and be prepared to open your eyes to what may lie just around the corner. Charm of Favor is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Real people, real radio. Wherever you are, make it TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
All right, we're back, Truth Seeker. We got 30 minutes left. We're with Eric 777, very brilliant guest, and he's shedding some light on the art of war and the Jesuit translation of it in 1772. And just before we go back to him, I just want to point out that in gematria terms, art of war sums to 102 and 114, whereas world war sums to 114 and 102. And both very relevant numbers to the history of war. For example, the American Civil War, which many people contend the Jesuits were behind, began on the 102nd day of the year, April 12, 1861. The name George Perry Floyd has 201 coded into it, the Jesuit number, as well as 102. And it's brought about, the toppling of Confederate statues, the banning of Confederate flags. World War, art of war. And again, this whole war on germs, the coronavirus being compared to the Spanish flu from 1918 that was 102 years ago. And they say the Spanish flu came out of World War I for another 102. So I find that very interesting. Again, if you're new here, Gematria, 4 base ciphers, the alphabetic order, the reverse alphabetic order, and then those same orders incorporating the rules of numerology. What's considered the most pure cipher is the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. In that cipher, art of war sums to 39, like the year World War II began, which a lot of major agendas really came out of, and the world was reshaped as we know it after World War II. So, with that said, you got the floor again, Eric.
But I'm saying that's what Eisenhower, his book he wrote after the war, I think he's called Crusade into Europe. I think with that title, The Crusade, I think that tells people who is the mover and shaker.
Sure. Yeah, good one.
And Eisenhower, actually didn't have really any military experience. And he actually though coached football at a Catholic college, I believe in Texas. But absolutely, when you're breaking down the art of war and world war, that's very fascinating. Essentially, they were. It's incredible how much they were controlling both sides of both World War I and World War II.
Right. Well, when you think about it, it's like it's just that they have an unfair advantage. They have so much power, they have so much influence, they have so much history. It's kind of like, like if you were an adult and you went to a playground where a bunch of children were, and you kind of sized up the situation and you saw which children are like maybe the most willing to fight or get their knuckles dirty. You might figure out a way to pit these two against each other using your older wisdom, having experience on these children. That's just kind of the way I see it. Is just that they're this old entity with all this power and influence and wisdom and knowledge, and they're kind of manipulating the world for their purpose, for their amusement. So, I don't know if I explained that right, but
I would say there's a reason why the Vatican Library is the biggest secret library in the world.
Sure.
Hundreds of thousands of volumes.
Right.
Of books. They don't want the public reading.
Right. Right.
And in terms of that, the Vatican is an international organization, or the Catholic Church is international. So in terms of a war, you should expect the fact that it transcends being a nation state. So you should expect Vatican agents on both sides. And just for World War I, the Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany famously wrote in his memoirs on page 211 that the Pope Leo XIII told him, the Kaiser of Germany, that Germany was to become the sword of the Catholic Church.
Huh.
During the First World War. And the Kaiser said, and then the Kaiser brings up how he challenged the Pope. He said, well, Pope, Germany isn't the Holy Roman Empire anymore under the days of Charlemagne. And the Kaiser said the Pope was persistent.
Well, that might be how it ended up in American newspapers, that Kaiser Wilhelm was the Antichrist for defying the Pope. And that is what persuaded Americans to join World War I and fight against Germany, who prior to joining, the average American favored Germany in the war over Britain.
And Woodrow Wilson was the first American president to have an honorary meeting with the Pope. Interesting, Woodrow Wilson, one of his personal advisors in the White House was a Knight of Columbus named Joseph Patrick Tumulty.
Huh.
And Tumulty was educated by the Jesuits at St. Peter's College in New Jersey. But for World War I, though, so you see how the Pope is controlling the one side, Germany, and you see with the France, or with the Allies, the supreme Allied commander during World War I was a Frenchman named Ferdinand Foch, and he was essentially a lay Jesuit, brought up in Jesuit schools his whole life. Foch had an older brother who was a Jesuit priest. This is the supreme Allied commander of World War I, Ferdinand Foch, Marshal Foch, F-O-C-H. And he was actually given an honorary Sword of Ignatius of Loyola at Georgetown University in 1921, after the first phase of the crusade had finished.
Huh.
And we brought up on the last stream, I read the quote how Heinrich Himmler modeled his Nazi SS strictly off of the Jesuit order. Douglas MacArthur, there's a famous photo of, you can see Douglas MacArthur walking out with the Jesuit priest Edmund Walsh at the Japanese Parliament when they were rebuilding Japan after the American occupation. You see Douglas MacArthur is literally beside Jesuit priest Edmund Walsh. This is the same Jesuit priest Edmund Walsh who was at the Nuremberg trials, who was literally getting Nazis off for war crimes. One of them being Karl Haushofer, a Roman Catholic who was Hitler's chief geopolitician.
Sure.
Haushofer's big book was Geopolitik.
Sure.
Walsh literally even wrote a Time in Life magazine in 1946. He wrote an article essentially bragging that he got Haushofer off. But this Jesuit priest was at Nuremberg in a U.S. military colonel's uniform. I think that's kind of profound control.
About Hitler, do you have any theories on what really happened to him? I mean, they tell you in the history books that he committed suicide and his body was never found, which is an obvious load. Something I've always noticed is that he died at age 56, reportedly, and Adolf Hitler and Society of Jesus both equal 56, and what's the most Pierce cipher. They have overlap in 2 out of the 4 base ciphers, Adolf Hitler and Society of Jesus. Do you have a theory on what might have actually happened to Hitler?
Well, I personally don't think he died in the bunker. But just before I go into that, interestingly, after Hitler officially died, Francisco Franco, the dictator of Spain, devout Roman Catholic, essentially like a lay Jesuit. Francisco Franco said that Hitler has died like a son of the Catholic Church.
Huh.
But I personally think Hitler probably ended up in Argentina or Colombia. And actually, I found a CIA file, declassified CIA file, just in their archive, where they say they have a photograph of a man in Colombia in the 60s, and they say this is Hitler.
I've seen that before, yeah.
You seen that one? Yeah, so I think he went to South America, which is the destination where all the other Nazis went, primarily Argentina. That's where Klaus Barbie ended up. Klaus Barbie then became the defense minister to Hugo Banzer's government under the name Klaus Altman.
Altman.
And Klaus Barbie, infamous Nazi, was a member of Opus Dei, which is a Catholic secret society. But yeah, I would say probably Argentina is most likely where Hitler ended up.
Makes sense. Okay, we've heard the same things. Interesting. All right, we got about
a big figure. People type in terms of just Vatican rat lines. A big figure comes up. His name is Krunoslav Draganovich. He was a Eustachi priest. It even it says right on his Wikipedia page on Krunoslav Draganovich, Draganovich, it says Krunoslav Draganovich was a Bosnian Croat Roman Catholic priest associated with the rat lines, which aided the escape of Eustachi war criminals from Europe after World War II. If people haven't heard of the Eustachi, they're essentially like strictly Catholic Nazis in Croatia.
Okay.
The priests are actually leading like the Eustachi movement. And actually, like Franciscan priest Peter Breja, like slaughtered 1,300 people in one night with the machete. Like the priests would actually have contests with each other to see how many people they could kill in the concentration camps. It's very, very hidden history, but it's called the Eustachi or Eustacia. And it's even, again, right on their Wikipedia page, you'll see that the Eustacia Catholic priests were, taking part in the terrorism.
Interesting.
But this Krunoslav Draganovich, he was also smuggling Nazis out of, and I have like documents from U.S. counterintelligence where they say that they admit to this. Draganovich was moving. He personally brought Klaus Barbie over to Argentina, but many priests and like the Martin Bormann. This is in the book The Vatican Papers by Nino Labello. Martin Bormann actually, when he was smuggled out of Nazi Germany, they had him dress up as a Jesuit. He was wearing a Jesuit Cossack as Martin Bormann, and it just so happens that Martin Bormann, his son, became a Jesuit priest. The top Nazi.
Okay, Eric, we're down to about 15 minutes of show left. I know you got a lot of information. There is one more thing I wanted to ask you before tonight, and then you can have free reign after that. But I've been observing this whole thing in Seattle, which is kind of my home city. Seattle University in Capitol Hill is one of the few Jesuit universities in the nation, and the whole thing going on in Seattle with the Autonomous Zone is right next to Seattle U. And the day the Autonomous Zone was set up was June 8th, 2020, a date with 54 numerology, and Capitol Hill equals 54, the same as Jesuit Order 54. Well, what's really interesting is probably the biggest building there at the Autonomous Zone is something called the Odd Fellows Temple. And I had never really paid attention to them before, and I still don't know much about them, but what stood out to me is that they are 201 years old right now, this big Jesuit number, while this Jesuit ritual is going on in Seattle's Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. And I just wondered if you knew anything about the Odd Fellows, if you've heard about them, or if they have some sort of link with the Jesuits.
I haven't heard of the Odd Fellows. That's very interesting. I'll have to do more digging into that. But is that true though? That the Autonomous Zone is right by Jesuit Seattle University?
Yeah, Capitol Hill. So Seattle. One of Seattle's neighborhoods is Capitol Hill. It's where most of the nightlife is. It's got most of the bars, the clubs. It's the more liberal end of town. It's known as the homosexual area. It's kind of like the Castro in San Francisco, if you're familiar. And one of the nation's few Jesuit universities. That's what's interesting about Washington State. It has two of the nation's not very many Jesuit universities. It has Gonzaga and it has Seattle U. And remember, Jesuit equals 42. Washington's the 42nd state in order of statehood, so that probably has something to do with it. But, yeah, just this recognizing that this... Because the other thing that's going on at this Odd Fellows Temple is people are climbing all over it like it's a jungle gym. Like, people are literally scaling the walls and climbing up. It's just bizarre what's going on at this building in this autonomous zone. And then to find out it's 201 years old, it just made me go, there's got to be some sort of link there. But I haven't been able to find it. But again, that's because there's not that much information.
I'm sure the Seattle mayor is a Roman Catholic. What's her, Jenny Durkin?
You're right.
I know she's probably like, and I think the puppet master in Seattle, like his name's Steven Spunberg, SJ. He's the president of Seattle University.
Okay.
And in terms of that, that's a very powerful Jesuit institution. You know, that's where Amazon is based.
Right.
I'm not mistaken. And Microsoft, right?
Indeed. And when they just wrote that article about how much money billionaires have gained, they wrote that article 144 days after Jeff Bezos' 56th birthday, and again, Society of Jesus' 56, Jesuit Orders 144, like how Trump posed with Pope Francis at the Vatican on May 24th, the 144th day of the year. So, yeah, it's hard to figure out who's behind a lot of these people, but the Catholic Jesuit trails are definitely there.
And then with Bezos, I found that at least that I found, he's given at least $50 million to Catholic charities.
Well, it makes a lot of sense, especially with the little
Bill Gates. I would say, what were you saying, Zach?
It makes I was going to say that date, June 4th, where they wrote that article about Bezos and the billionaires, that date can be written 4-6, like 46, like 46 books in the Catholic Old Testament, and like how Catholic equals 46 as well. So, yeah, him donating to the Catholic Church, I'm sure it's a two-way street. Good information.
And okay, I know. I think I saw this in your Gematria News blog, but you brought up how the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was the primary financier of the Jesuits' Cristo Rey High School
in Chicago. Yes.
Yeah, they started in Chicago and kind of a lot of the big inner cities in America, kind of in the downtown cores. But the initial funding came from the Gates Foundation, right. And Melinda Gates, very interestingly, she admitted that her uncle is a Jesuit priest.
Right, I saw that.
She admitted to that at a TED Talk in Thailand in 2012. And I know in terms of Seattle, like the recent mayor Ed Murray went to a Jesuit seminary.
He had a story about 2 years back, I want to say, maybe 2 years and a few months. There was a story about how a man in the area was found dead who had recently accused him of sexual assault, and he was found dead at age 47, and Seattle's on the 47th parallel. Another big number there with the church, because Christians 47, Confession 47, Vatican 47, Francis 47, the Vatican's establishment date February 11th, kind of like 211, the 47th prime. So, okay, he has the connections as well. He just had a big cover-up for him because there was a murder in connection to him not long ago, Ed Murray. I've met that guy in person. He's a real POS, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I can imagine. And I know one of my researchers I work with, Johnny Cerrucci, he exposed Murray. I think he adopted. I think it was more alleged. The courts sided with Murray, but he was alleged to have adopted a couple of young boys and abused them even with his. Because this guy he's a homosexual.
Yeah.
With him and his husband. Mm-hmm. Very creepy stuff, and we haven't gone into the sex abuse side of the Catholic Church, but in terms of the sex abuse, it's the Vatican that's at the very top. And there's been some huge scandals that have recently even come out in the United States.
Well,
2018 in Pennsylvania, I think they released it was kind of comical because 60 pages of the report was redacted, but they released an 800-page report naming thousands of children raped by I think they named at least 600 priests in that report.
It's gross. And look at what they just did in Minnesota. 2 days after the George Floyd news, it came out that the Catholic Church of Minnesota paid out $22.5 million in settlements to the families of sexually abused children in Minnesota. And that number of $22.5 million was weird because George Floyd died on his 225th day of his age. Just a few days before that, on May 22nd, 22/5, there was the story about how they weren't going to do the Harriet Tubman $20 bill, and Harriet Tubman happens to sum to 201 as well. But going back to Event 201, it was exactly 225 minutes long, and part of the simulation is civil unrest and protesting and rioting and violent police crackdowns, as they term it, in the simulation. They also did the same thing in Clade X, done by the same people. So the whole George Floyd ritual, perfectly synced with Event 201, also ended up being perfectly synced with the Minnesota sexual abuse settlement. And of course, not many people caught that headline because of everything going on with George Floyd.
Oh, no, fantastic. No, great making those, connecting the dots there, exactly. I'm saying you blow me away with all the numbers research.
There's a meaning to the 225, by the way. The term "the Great Tribulation" equals 225, which comes from Revelation. It's the part where you're accepting the mark of the beast if you want to buy or sell. So, major biblical themes.
In terms of, I would just say, I think officially in the U.S. alone, I think they paid out like $4 billion in settlements.
Crazy.
Just since, and people should watch the movie, like even like Spotlight. That's a movie that goes into, I'm surprised they made that movie. Well, like, the psyop in that movie is they make it seem like the Boston Globe is like they're journalists who are always like out to seek truth, and they're really doing their job.
Right.
Which is a farce. And actually, interestingly, the reporter who led that investigation, Robinson is his last name. I forget his first name. He went to Jesuit Boston High School.
Okay.
And they even kind of bring it up in the movie. And he was the journalist that suppressed the abuse story earlier in the 90s. But in that case, too, like the Archbishop of Boston, Cardinal Law, nothing happened to him. He actually got a promotion after the whole scandal. It was just ultimately like a low-level parish priest was the fall guy, Father John Gagan.
Huh.
That all happened in real life, and they made a movie about that, and it's pretty good. And you see how powerful the Catholic Church is from watching that movie. Like there's a scene actually where the lawyer Mitch Garabedian, he's a real life lawyer. Some of his videos are on YouTube. He's had a bunch of cases with the settlements with the Catholic Church. His character in the movie says that he's talking to the reporter, and he says, "Well, I'm an experienced man, and they control everything." And he referred to the church, and then he says everything again. He stresses it. So there's some good gems in that movie. But the psyop is that the journalists are always informing us and doing their jobs.
Sure. Again, that's Spotlight. Spotlight. I'll check it out. I appreciate it.
And in terms of I recommend just Johnny Cerrucci's work if people want to see for top-notch research into the pedophilia scandals with the Roman Catholic Church.
How long has he been doing his thing?
Cerrucci. And I'll just say there's no coincidence that Jeff Epstein, who's been in the news recently, there's no coincidence you can see a photo of him with the Pope. And Netflix obviously didn't bring that up at all, and Jeff Epstein was donating money to Catholic charities.
By the way, his full name equals 322 for another little Skull and Bones / Bavarian Illuminati reference. Yeah, the whole Epstein thing was a joke by the numbers, dying on Tisha B'Av, the first day of Tisha B'Av, the day of Jewish tragedy. Major mockery there with what they did with Epstein.
Oh, absolutely. The whole thing. Interestingly, after he, I don't have any definitive proof, but I wonder if he's, still alive. But like the day that he, or after he, supposedly committed suicide in prison, there was a shakeup at the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and they were supposedly going to get to the bottom of what happened, supposedly. But the new director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons became Kathleen Hawk Sawyer. Literally has her master's from Welling Jesuit College in West Virginia, and she was Bill Clinton's. This is her second stint. Bill Clinton appointed her as the federal director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons in the 90s. Interestingly, when he passed the crime bill, or before he passed the crime bill in 1994, which put way more Americans in jail. That's like over the top corruption, I think.
Sure.
Clinton obviously was on the Epstein list. Interestingly, so was Clinton's campaign manager, Doug Band, who went to Jesuit Georgetown. He had 38 entries on Epstein's black book list.
Okay, I got a question for you. So, all right. So we know Trump's connections to the Jesuits, Fordham. Obama, I know Obama somehow is synced up there. Obama appeared at Agenda 2030 on the last day of Agenda 2030, which fell on the Jesuit birthday, September 27th, 2015. Obama, that was his 54th day of being 54 years old, and Jesuit order equals 54. His birthday is also 8-4, August 4th, and Jesuits 84. He won the 56th U.S. presidential selection, Society of Jesus 56. Do you know anywhere in his upbringing where he might have crossed paths with the Jesuits?
Jack, it's Jesuit through and through. Actually, this is admitted by the New York Times in an article. I think the Catholic roots of Obama's community organizing or Obama's social teaching. But when Obama was in Chicago doing his community organizing, there's actually a Jesuit priest that was mentoring him. His name is Greg Galuzzo. Galluzzo.
Greg Galuzzo, perfect. I knew it had to be there.
And on Obama, one of the he went. Like I mentioned, I think earlier on the show, one of the first things he did as president was he gave the honorary or commencement at Catholic Notre Dame University.
Okay.
And Obama, he's an epic sellout to the Vatican. He actually, I have on video. People can. It's on Georgetown University channel, but they are Georgetown University's YouTube channel. But in March 1st, 2015, Obama gave a tribute speech to Georgetown. He said, this world has has you to thank for Jesuit values. We can aspire to be to Jesuit values.
Sure.
Yeah, Obama. If you look at through his appointments, Obama just had Jesuit trained appointee after Jesuit trained appointee, and to be the president when the Pope came to address a live session of Congress, that's a big statement. Obama famously he gave a presidential statement. I think he even wrote a proclamation on the day Father Damien was canonized, who is this charlatan Catholic priest who is supposedly a medical healer in Hawaii.
Eric, we got 15 seconds. Any last thoughts before we run out of time here tonight?
Thanks again for having me on, Zach. We just realized what's going on right now in the world is a Jesuitical or Sun Tzuian art of war tactics. And if you know, the Jesuits wrote the Art of War, and Sun Tzu is an allegory for the Jesuit general. Everything starts to make sense.
It does. It does. Really appreciate it, Eric. Great work as always. Thank you everyone for tuning in. That's the show. Until next time. All right, Truth Seeker. For the people still on the YouTube live stream, the radio show is over. A little bit of after hours. I don't have the phone to call in. Just before I sign off, let me review what news headlines I kept up with today. Again, I haven't been the best right now at keeping up with the headlines. Just because I've been trying to spend every last minute possible finishing the book that is so close. But again, I just want to get it so right the first time to hopefully make something happen. I'm right now I'm living on this pipe dream that once the book's out, somehow it's going to catch wind, it's going to catch on, a lot of people are going to hear about it. We'll be traveling all over, getting people organized, standing up, and maybe we need to have a lot of, meetings and gatherings at these Jesuit universities to let them know we see what's up. And again, it's not to say that everyone at the Jesuit university is bad. There's plenty of people going to Jesuit schools who are just going for a good education. The Jesuit universities are known for doing holistic education, understanding the whole system, more complete, more thorough. That's why a lot of people go. So it's not to say that everything about the Jesuits and their schools are bad, But at the same time, what it is to say is that the Jesuits are definitely up to no good as well. You know, they're using their good reputation to do all this stuff in the dark. And, you know, the Jesuits, like the Masons, they're into that black and white symbolism. You know, big smile in the daytime, killer grin at night. And, yeah, I was just scanning here to see if there was any stories really worth talking about today. I don't think there is. You guys might have caught this one. Lincoln County in Oregon. Remember, Oregon's the 33rd state, the only with Gematria 74, those infamous numbers. But Lincoln County, like Lincoln in the Civil War, they passed a face mask law that says people who aren't white don't have to wear the mask. So if you're white, you have to wear the mask. But if you're not white, then you have the option to not wear it. And they said the reason for that is because there's a stigmatism with people of darker complexions being criminals, and maybe if they have masks on, people will assume they're... I mean, all of this stuff is a big, sick joke, and it's just meant to get people fighting and divided, like the Jesuit concept, divide and conquer, which happens to equal 84 like Jesuit as well. But, yeah, so, you know, you guys, I think we can leave it there for tonight. Another really good show. I apologize that I didn't get to the callers. Again, that's the downside of having a guest, is we don't get to take your calls. I do love to hear your guys' voices. And once I'm done with the book, I promise I'll make it up. I know I've been doing less live streams, less content, period, on YouTube. Don't forget to follow me at GematriaEffectNews. I still am posting all the new stuff here. But as soon as I am done with this book process, which is a grueling process to get it right, I mean, I could have rushed the thing out and said I was done weeks ago, but again, trying to do it right. As soon as I'm done, and I know I keep saying I'm really close, which is true, as soon as I'm done, I will make the big announcement, and we'll get back to, you know, call-in shows almost daily, hearing your voice, getting your thoughts out there. So, appreciate everyone. What I have not done today since maybe around noon was eating some food. And even though it still kind of looks like it's daytime out here, I probably haven't eaten anything for about 9 hours. So I'm going to eat a little snack, call it a day. And again, just want to say I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you to everyone who has pre-ordered the book. Again, if you would like to pre-order the book, if you come to GematriaEffect.news, the top pinned post, there's directions down here for how to order. For those of you who've already pre-ordered, the book is going to be bigger than I said it was. My goal was to keep the book at 150 pages long. I didn't want it to be too long. In a way, I'm staying true to that promise because the book is going to be 150 pieces of paper, but it'll be front and back. So the book's more around the 300-page, maybe a little bit more than 300 pages, but it needs to be that long. Again, I'm not putting everything in there, but I'm putting all the essential information that really connects the dots of what's going on right now and with what's going on in history. And, you know, you bring a guy like Eric 777 on and he gives you all this more information, and then all of a sudden your book's 600 pages long. And that is what happened to me when I wrote my first book that ended up being nearly 800 pages. It's not going to happen again, but there's just so much information, and there's so much to share, and there's so many dots to connect throughout history that sometimes it can be a little bit tricky deciding, like, okay, do I put this piece in there or this piece? Do I put them both in there? Do I need either of them? I mean, these are the kind of decisions I'm making each day. It's like, how much is too much? And what's the right amount? So, if you are pledged on the Patreon page, I am uploading chapters there. I could put up a few more, but kind of just want to kind of give you all of the book completed and done. So, anyway, I have been giving it piece by piece on Patreon if you want to check it out. But yeah, that's the show. Be sure to check out Eric, ERIC, space 777. And I should ask him why he went with Eric 777. A lot of people like that number, 777. But that's his YouTube channel. The guest we had tonight, Eric 777. He's on Reddit. He's on archive.org. Eric Bowman. So thank you again, everyone. We'll call it an evening. And don't forget to hit that like button. Till next time.